Hey everyone, welcome to 2023. Welcome to GameFace in 2023. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for the next couple hours of intense game discussion. Alongside me to do that is Matt Kyle into 2023. How's it going, brother?
About the same.
Yeah, about the same?
Wetter.
Yeah, you guys are lucky that we're actually here because LA right now is in like a monsoon. It is, I can't even put into words how hard it has rained here. Not just like the last week, but really since we said goodbye to you guys before Christmas. It is just poured rain here. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. Normally we're talking about how we're in a drought. I thought your house might have floated away. That's how much it's raining.
We're still in a drought.
It's crazy.
It dumped water on LA. It didn't dump snow up where we need it, where the reservoirs are.
Yeah, you're right. We're still technically in a drought, but oh my gosh. So driving over here to Matt's house, it was all the stoplights were shut down. The power was shut off. I was worried that Matt wouldn't have power and we wouldn't be able to do the show, but we got here. Power's on for now. If everything just shuts down, you know what happened.
It's done.
Is it done? The rain's done now?
For a few days.
Oh, okay. So it did stop. On the way over here, it was drizzling a little bit, but it does appear to be stopped at this point. So I think we're going to be okay. Hope you guys had an amazing holiday season. Hope you had a great and safe New Year's and New Year's Eve. We're into 2023, ready to rock it. Before we get going, I want to thank our sponsor, LS Cream. Matt, I drank some LS Cream over the holidays. Mm-hmm. I took a bottle over to a friend's apartment for a party, and people absolutely loved it. They were like, your buddy, this is his company? And I was like, yep. They're like, we will buy this instead of Bailey's forever. So big hit at the holiday parties that I took it to. Big thanks to them for sponsoring the show. We really, really appreciate it. You can find LS Cream if you go to Bevmo or any places online, or you can go to lscream.com, and there's a store locator there where they can help you find it. The owner of LS Cream is a sifter. Try to support your fellow gamers in whatever they're doing. If you're going to buy liquor, you might as well buy it from someone like us. So hit them up at lscream.com. Lots of housekeeping to get to before we get going. Last night was the big premiere event for The Last of Us TV show for HBO here in LA. And it was literally in Hollywood. The water was over people's car tires. That's how flooded Hollywood was. And they had the event for The Last of Us TV show. And they were just drenched, and it was a total downpour. I felt bad for them at first, but the more I thought about it, I was like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, thematically appropriate. In a lot of ways.
Yeah, and look, they were having a blast. I think they're just so stoked to finally have the project done and getting ready to be released and out there that they're just like, whatever, you can't rain on this parade. So it looked like Neil and crew were having a good time. Congratulations to them. The show airs on the 15th, is that correct?
On Sunday, yeah.
So we'll be able to talk about the first episode on next week's show, which we're very excited about. The reviews for it have been great.
Yeah, I think it's sitting at 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's amazing, people. That's really good.
Well, positive reviews from people who have and have not played the games.
Yeah. I'm looking for the reviews from the varieties and publications like that instead of us. I want to see what the people who cover TV and film for a living think of this show
They have been very positive on it.
Yeah. Looks like it's pretty good, people.
Apparently episode 3 is a banger.
Oh, really? So 2 episodes of build and then all hell breaks loose.
Well, we'll see. They're all they're variable lengths. I think the first episode's 85 minutes, second episode's 55, and the third episode's 80.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So they're as long as they need to be to cover whatever they're doing.
I think also, and I know a lot of people don't care about this, but
the reviewers got all 9 episodes, which is unusual.
That is unusual.
That's a confidence.
Yeah. A lot of times they're not even finished when they start running. They still have a couple tweaks they want to make.
That shows that they're very confident about this show.
Absolutely. Yep. So that's something to look forward to this weekend, the first episode of that. What else we got here? Fantasy leagues. So we obviously went through the winners and the losers, winner, of our fantasy leagues from last year in the last episode that we did. And you guys are probably wondering, when are we launching our fantasy leagues and the fantasy challenge for you guys? And that will be happening next Tuesday. So next Tuesday, Matt and I will do our draft. And we'll also continue our 2023 preview because the draft usually doesn't take the full 3 hours or whatever. And then we'll also launch the Fantasy Challenge for you guys. So during GameFace next Tuesday, the Fantasy Challenge will launch. So start doing your homework, start figuring out what games you want to add to your team for the Fantasy Challenge. keeping in mind that this year there was, 15 people who had all 10 games. Unheard of for the Sifted Fantasy Challenge. So anyway, that will be ready to launch next Tuesday. Matt and I will do our draft next Tuesday. We'll get all that stuff in motion. Today's show is going to be great, even though January is dry AF. There's really not a lot of games coming out this month at all. But we're doing previews of 2023. We're going to tackle PlayStation and Nintendo today. We're going to talk about one of the only games that people were kind of discussing over the holiday break. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what happened at CES. We have a great show for you guys. We're really excited about it. A couple other things before we get going. Changes to Sifted, stuff like that. I'm probably going to talk about that a little bit more in depth next week. Things that we're planning on doing for 2023. One thing I can say is we're going to start repackaging a lot of our content from GameFace and disseminating it out into social media platforms. So we've never really taken the time to chop up GameFace, find some of Matt's great quotes from each episode and put them up on our Twitter. We're also going to launch our own TikTok channel, believe it or not. I know Matt's like, what? But Matt, that's where it's all going. It really is.
TikTok,
I know
TikTok's going to get banned right as you
it might.
Put that up.
It might. But look, that's where everybody is. That's where everybody's going. I know all the young audience for sure is on TikTok. I've been going through a crash course on TikTok over the last 3 weeks or so. It's been interesting. I've actually kind of enjoyed it. But we're going to start popping out little pieces of GameFace out onto TikTok, out onto YouTube Shorts. We're going to try to hone in on great moments from each episode and get those out there as promotion for the show. And we're going to be doing some cool stuff on TikTok that will actually be exclusive to TikTok. Stuff that we're only going to do for that platform. But again, don't want to talk about all that stuff in depth today. We'll get into that a little bit more next week, and the plans will become a little more crystalline. Essentially, we're just catching up with everybody at this point. We need to start doing shorter content. We have totally realized you guys love the 3-hour show. That's not going to go away. We're always going to give you that big hunk of GameFace love every Tuesday. But we need to be smarter about the 3 hours that we're spending here. What can we do with that content that we're creating?
There's a channel I follow called, and I think everyone, if you like X-Files, these stuff you like, it's called the Y-Files. And it's just this guy who's hosting basically a show about unexplained weird shit. And I like him because he tells the story and plays it totally straight. And then at the end, he comes back and he's like, here's why all of that is nonsense, basically. And he's got an animated goldfish named Hecklefish, who's the tinfoil. He's got a tinfoil hat on his goldfish bowl. He believes everything. So it's a nice back and forth. But anyway, he had that. He and his wife had a podcast studio on Sunset Boulevard that they started in February 2020. Mm-hmm. And then some things went wrong because the world ended.
Yeah.
And they ended up in Austin.
Did they launch a podcast studio where they were letting people come in and rent time?
They were producing podcasts. They had a bunch of them under their umbrella, and they were
so they were floating the bill for the podcast.
Yeah, so they were like a network almost.
Gotcha.
And they moved out to Austin and shut all that stuff down, and he started this channel, and it wasn't getting any. He had 5,000 subscribers. I still had 5,000, slowly climbing, June of last year, and then he started doing the TikTok stuff. A little short things that he didn't want to do. He wanted to do half-hour long shows, but he did the TikTok things, and the TikTok stuff went nowhere. It was pointless. It didn't get anywhere. There was no traction. And then at some point, YouTube Shorts started, and he started, and his wife and a couple of people was like, "Hey, you got to put something on there." You should put. He's like, "I don't want," but he's like, "I have all these TikTok videos that nobody cares about, and I shut the channel down." So
why not run them?
So he put all the TikTok things up on YouTube Shorts, and for whatever reason, the algorithm picked up one of the TikTok short things he did, and the YouTube Shorts, and now so that was in June, and December he had 1 million subscribers.
Yeah, it can happen that fast.
And I found him in September actually through a normal YouTube search. I didn't ever see the shorts, but he credits the YouTube Shorts with why he blew up.
Well, he also struck while the iron was hot, because back then YouTube had just kind of launched Shorts, and it was prioritizing those in its algorithm and giving them more visibility. For example, we did a promo for one of our shows for a short on YouTube, and the promo ended up doing more views than the actual episode that the promo was for. So you could see that YouTube was prioritizing that, because TikTok is eating YouTube's lunch right now. So it's trying to figure out how to kind of stem the tide there. And hopefully we're not getting on that wave too late. But we are going to do a dual-pronged attack with both YouTube Shorts and with TikTok. We'll see how it goes. You never know. It's like you said. You could put one piece up that just goes bonkers, everyone subscribes, and off you go. So just trying to find new avenues to get our content out here, because I believe in our content. I think it's strong. And I just think more people need to be exposed to it, and that's what we're going to try to do. And we hope that you guys will help us with that. If you guys do use TikTok, once we launch the channel, hope you guys will follow us, and we'll announce all that stuff so you guys can go and do it and all that kind of jazz. But anyway, just some stuff that's happening in 2023 for Sifted, and we'll get into more of that next week. I think that's it for our housekeeping. Yeah. The only other thing I could really bring up is that, like, my holiday sucked. I got sick on December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, and I was sick up until, like, 4 days ago. I got that crazy, like, RSV or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It is the weirdest sickness. You are crazy congested, but you feel okay. Like, I wasn't tired. I didn't feel sick. My head was just clogged, and it just lasted forever. So the last, like, 5 days of my vacation in Pennsylvania, I literally just sat in my mom's living room and watched terrible television with her for 5 days straight. She watches, like, Judge Judy and Hot Bench and all these just, like, man, there's got to be something better you can do with your time. But anyway, my holidays ended up kind of sucking.
British mysteries like my mom.
and then the worst part of it all is, and I don't want to talk about this too much because I know you guys don't care about fantasy football or whatever, but so this year has been insane because the championship game for fantasy football was the last game was the game where the guy died on the field and they revived him. And now he's fine. He's out of the hospital now. Like, well, he's in the hospital, but he walked into his new hospital in Buffalo. Anyway, it was really complicated about how you could figure out who would win. And I was the commissioner of the league, and I was in the championship game. And I'll just let you know, this championship game was worth like $3,000. And I'm the commissioner, so people always look at me to make sure that I'm not doing shady stuff. So I have to, like, go above and beyond to placate everyone else in the league. So what happened was everybody else just said whoever was winning when that game ended wins, and I was winning. But, like, my league was like, oh, you're a commish, you're trying to hand yourself the championship. I was like, okay. So I let the guy who had a couple players to go play his players in week 18 and use those scores, and his players went bananas, and I lost $3,000. All because I was trying to be like the good guy. I can't even tell you how devastating that was. It still hurts. When I think about it, I still get this awful feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's the perfect case of when doing the right thing goes wrong, basically. I tried to do the right thing and be the good guy, and I got burned. So anyway, it was not a great holiday season for me. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be here with you guys. Glad to be doing GameFace. Glad to be back with Matt. You got your SSD drive today for your PS5.
I did.
Have fun installing that.
Yeah.
Because it's a little tricky.
Yeah, I'll wait on that.
Yeah.
A little while.
But let's flip to you guys and see what you guys are up to in chat. Johnny Hurricane, who you got making it to the Super Bowl? Ooh, that's a good one. I honestly don't know. I was shocked that the Steelers won 9 games and almost made the playoffs. It just shows you how terrible the NFL is. But I guess if I had to bet...
Isn't the 49ers like doing well with the last pick draft guy?
With their third string quarterback. Yeah. Because their defense is good and they can run the ball. So the quarterback...
Mr. Irrelevant.
It's insane how well they're doing. So I would say...
That's very in character for that team these days.
I mean, I'd actually say probably the 49ers are going to go in the NFC. I know I'm from Philly, so a lot of people might think I'd assume the Eagles, but their quarterback's kind of banged up. So I'm going to go 49ers, Chiefs, I think. Will be the two teams in the Super Bowl. That's my guess.
That's a lot of red.
Yep. Sneaky, if you had time, you could do an SSD install video for Sifted. That's true. There are so many of those out there already. Eric Cartmenez, it's time for Tomlin to go. Hell no, man. He did one of his best jobs coaching ever this year. I can't believe they won 9 games. It's insane. Chiefs fans in the chat, really very appreciative of my prognostication. Raphael Michael, I'm following a creator on YouTube, and when he started doing shorts, his YouTube income went 3 times to 4 times as a result. I'm hoping that'll happen for us. And really the idea is I don't really want our shorts to blow up. But I want the people to find the shorts and then find the real content that we create and then support us on our Patreon. That's the goal. That is
what happened to Y-Files.
Yeah. I hope that'll happen for us. We'll see.
He's got so many Patreon people now, he has to scroll the thing so fast that like you can't read anything anymore.
Yeah. Let's see. Give me a 5-hour show, Eric Carmenas. That's not happening, bro. I think 3 is plenty. David5807, thank you for Twitch Prime. Everybody, thank you for Twitch Prime, by the way. A lot of people did this while we were gone over the holidays. Thanks to everybody who did that. Andy T. Monahan, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. Glottis21, thank you for Twitch Prime. One Super Master Gamer, thank you for Twitch Prime. Commander Fett, thank you. Toast9, Justin Horman, The Big Smoke 82, Johnny Hurricane, Corey Film, Raphael Michael. You guys are all getting in here. Pitor91, all of you guys, thank you for Twitch Prime. Also, another thing to note, at the end of the episode, we will be doing Name That Game. Everybody's back in the game now. Yeah. So anyone who has won last year, you can now participate and name that game again at the end of today's episode. And with that, now I think we're ready to kick off GameFace 325. And we're going to start it off with a preview of PlayStation for 2023. Now, we already...
the cat with its lower third, you monster.
Let me read the lower third so you can see the cat. There she is.
Yeah, she knows.
And there she goes. She knew she was camera shy.
Her time is over.
That's funny. Chances are, if you're a patron, you guys have already watched Michael Pachter's prediction episode for 2023. I don't want to spoil anything. Maybe some of you guys haven't watched it yet. We will reference a couple of those things throughout the course of today's big 2023 preview. But the one thing I will say is that in another episode, he was asked about a PlayStation 5 Pro. And I'm not going to spoil what he said about it. What do you think about it, Matt? Do you think that there's room for mid-cycle console refreshes this time around?
Not yet.
Because it doesn't make sense yet, right?
No, I mean, they are doing the new PlayStation 5 with a removable drive thing, but that's not a hardware change.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a hardware change, but it's not a power shift.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see that happening unless... I mean, I guess it could if this generation goes a decade. Mm-hmm. But, I wouldn't expect to see that until, 2025 at the earliest.
Now, we'll talk in a little bit about PlayStation at CES.
I don't even know what that would look like. What...
I know.
What would you do? I mean, I guess you could stand for a hardware revision of the PS5 that gets rid of the coil whine and some of the stuff that people have had problems with. But in terms of, upgrading the power, what do you do? Put more RAM in it, I guess? I don't...
Better GPU.
I guess so, but it's the hardware is so specific.
It is.
That, it's hard to imagine a revamp that, wouldn't be essentially a new system, as opposed to, the Xbox, which, put a stronger CPU and a stronger GPU in there, and you got a Series Y.
Yeah, whatever the hell they call it. Series Z.
And clearly Nintendo is skipping the mid-switch refresh and just going to put a new system out at some point.
Unless you count the OLED.
Which didn't change. I don't count it unless it's a
hardware change. Power change. I agree. That's where we should draw the line, I think.
Yeah, because otherwise you're talking about DS a lot. There were a lot more DSs than we would consider.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are probably sitting there right now saying, Shane and Matt, I can't get a PS5 still.
Right.
But the one thing I will say is that at CES, Jim Ryan said, if you have been struggling to find a PlayStation 5, I can promise you from this moment forward, it will be much easier to get one. I have no idea what prompted him to say that.
Yeah, I don't know. 5 times 0 is still 0.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say this. Most of my relatives who wanted a PlayStation 5 got one this holiday season. So all my sisters and brothers who were trying to find them for themselves or for their nieces and nephews, who were always texting me saying hey, if you hear of any going on sale, let me know. Every one of those people got one this holiday season. So it does appear that they managed to clear out a lot of backlog. Also, they said that, the last December was the best month for PlayStation 5 ever, as far as sales are concerned.
Look what happens when you put units out.
When you actually have the hardware out there. So it does appear that the logjam is starting to break free a little bit. But I agree with you. I don't see where there's an opportunity for a PlayStation 5 Pro yet. I just don't know what it would even be.
Yeah, it'd just be more power. But it's there's nothing there. There's nothing, especially... The thing that's going to prompt the companies to do that is if they have games in their own pipeline that they know can't run properly,
right,
or that they need the boost for.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see anything like that in Sony's upcoming schedule. Really,
we'll get into the schedule.
They kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
You've got things like Horizon and God of War running very well, and you don't need to really go. We'll see what happens when you're moving into stuff that's PS5 only, but it feels like they kind of got a handle on that for now.
Well, the PS4 Pro had a unique selling proposition, a USP. It was 4K. You could not play games in 4K on the base PS4. And with the PS4 Pro, you could now, albeit it was cheating a little bit with checkerboarding, but still,
Yeah, it was a
the checkerboarding was pretty damn impressive.
It was a noticeable change.
Yeah,
everything ran better. It was
right.
it was a general all around upgrade.
And it was needed. This I don't see the gateway. I don't see the doorway.
We're not
for it.
seeing like you're talking about like, well, you could run, Miles Morales at 60 frames per second in quality mode.
Right.
Okay, is that worth paying $550 for? There's no there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we see a PlayStation 5 Pro. I don't think we see it at all. I don't think we'll ever get one.
I think if we do, we'll see it. Like I said, it would be 2025, 2026 if everybody decides to stick with this generation until like 2030.
Yeah.
Then you're going to probably run into something like that. But
that's a long ways away still.
It'll be a very long time from now.
Yeah, so I don't see a PlayStation 5 Pro coming anytime soon, if at all. Again, there's just no opportunity. What are they going to say? Okay, now it does 8K? What's the USP for it? To get people to buy it or to upgrade?
Yeah.
It's hard. That's a hard sell. Particularly,
it's a hard thing to explain.
It is. Particularly when we're already dealing with the law of diminishing returns with this generation of hardware anyway, more than we ever have with the generation of hardware. So I just don't see it happening, to be perfectly honest with you. So hardware-wise, I don't think we're going to get much on the PlayStation front this year. The big hardware thing for PlayStation this year, obviously, is PlayStation VR 2. That's going to be the big hardware thing for PlayStation this year. I think it's going to have its hands full just trying to launch that successfully. So for multitude of reasons, neither one of us think that we're going to see any new iteration on the PlayStation 5 hardware. And I hope that what Jim Ryan said about supply coming into congruence with demand is true, and they're going to be on store shelves. I saw Raphael Michael in chat mention that he saw them on store shelves over the holidays. That did not happen for me. I still have not seen one sitting on the store shelf anywhere, but they were a more ready supply if you were actually on the hunt and looking for them and you'd been going through those same channels for the last couple of years trying to find them. It was easier to get them through those same existing channels. So there is some change afoot. All right, next we're going to talk about software for PlayStation 5, Matt. And I will say, doing the research for this, I was pretty shocked at the lack of exclusive games that are announced right now for PlayStation 5. Not just this year, but generally. There's not a lot that we know about. We're going to go chronologically. We're going to do this with every platform that we do 2023 previews for. We're going to go through the known games chronologically.
Sorry, there's somebody at the door will not go away.
Okay.
I need to go check this.
Let me know if you need me to come down there and handle something. So anyway, we're going to handle these. We're going to go chronological through all the games that we know the release dates for. And then at the end, there's just going to be a pile of games for each platform that do not have release dates. And then Matt and I will kind of talk about whether we think they're actually going to make it out this year or not, if they do, when they're going to come out, that sort of thing. So that's how we're going to structure these. Again, we're doing PlayStation and Nintendo today. Next week's show, we're going to do PC and third-party and Xbox, although we may end up pushing third-party to the next episode of GameFace, depending on how long I think our draft is going to take. Next week's going to be crazy. There's a reason why we didn't do next week today, and we pushed it a week. Because next week's episode is going to be bonkers, trying to get everything done in the amount of time that we have. So, again, we're going to go through all the software chronologically, and then we generally have a little pile of games that are supposed to release this year, but don't have hard release dates. And Matt and I will kind of sift through those and figure out which ones we think are realistically coming out here in the next 12 months or so. The first game we're going to talk about is a game that we actually previewed right before we left for the holidays, and that game is Forspoken. It is a PlayStation 5 exclusive action RPG developed by Square Enix. Oddly enough, after Square Enix had sold a lot of its Western developers, this action RPG is it reaching out an olive branch to the Western audience to try to create a game that will appeal to people in the West, in the United States, in Europe, etc. Now, if you remember, when we previewed this, I kind of liked it, and I thought it was unique. Matt did not. Matt was not a fan of this game at all. In fact, he played the demo and said he kind of struggled to get through the demo. I did not. I actually played through the free demo that was available pretty much for a couple hours because it was just a big chunk of open world, and if you were smart about how you played it and avoided the final boss fight, you could just poke around in the open world as long as you wanted, and then once you fought the final boss, then the demo would end. So once you figure that out, you could go out in the open world and you could really give this game a legitimate spin to try to figure out what the gameplay loop is like and what it's going to be like to play it. Again, I enjoyed it. It is something different. It's different, but it's also familiar enough. And I found that to be a pretty good mix. And Matt is back. Is everything okay, Matt?
Yeah, it was a package delivery. Apparently, he needed a signature, but because he wasn't wearing a uniform, it looked like some guy loitering by the front door.
Lurking. Okay. So I was just talking about Forspoken, Matt, and how I liked the demo more than you did. Have your feelings changed at all in this since we played it in December?
Not really. Like, I didn't dislike it. I just didn't. It was not a good demo to me in the sense that I don't think it onboarded you very well into the game systems. Like, a lot of it was like, just playing it, I was like, this is going to feel a lot better when I can play it from the beginning of the game.
Yep. Because they did just kind of plunk you down in the middle of things with this demo.
I don't think a lot of the spell stuff was explained very well. And
Agreed.
I
agree with that, too.
muddled my way through it, but I felt like I didn't get my head around all the game mechanics properly, which I would playing it from the beginning. Also, because I didn't mess around with it and really stick with it as long as you did, in part because I knew progress wasn't going to carry over.
Yep. Yeah, that's another thing. Could you agree with me that all demos should allow progress to carry over?
It would be nice, or
if you can.
At least give me something,
right?
Like in the game, a little unlock thing or something.
Yep, agreed.
I just don't. As much as I love open world stuff, I don't like doing open world stuff twice.
Yep, I agree with that.
And apparently, the missions in this, like the main missions, the checkpoint missions in this, are not in the game. They're just sort of. They're basically like, here's a taste of what quests will be like, kind of thing. So that's different. But I didn't spend a lot of time running around, and I didn't like how a lot of the traversal felt. I didn't like it. It didn't. I've been looking forward to this game, and like this didn't make a very good impression on me. Reading more about it later, like where there's like people who played it and discovered, you can do this and hold this and that'll do this instead. Like, okay, it'd been nice to know that. It never told me that. I'm just gonna fully withhold judgment on this game until I play it from the beginning.
And here's the good news: we don't have to wait very long.
No, it's coming.
It comes out on January 24th. Again, for now, it is a PlayStation console exclusive, so you're not gonna be able to play this on any other console. I would say this is one you probably want to wait for Matt and I to discuss the final version before taking the plunge. I'm sure this game's probably going to cost $70 as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I would probably...
It's Square. They're not giving you a break on anything.
So I would probably wait until Matt and I kind of let you know what's up with the final version of the game. And the good news, too, is that we generally get early review code from Square Enix. So we should have a pretty good report on this game before you have to pull the trigger on release day. So, again, I would wait, but it is coming out soon, here in just a couple weeks on January 24th, and it is exclusive to PlayStation 5. Next up, Horizon Call of the Mountain. This is a PlayStation VR 2 game, going to be the flagship launch game for PlayStation VR 2.
Going to probably be the flagship PSVR 2 game, period.
Probably forever.
Yeah, if a higher quality, bigger, AAA kind of game comes out for the PSVR 2, I will be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and this comes out on launch day of PlayStation VR on February 22nd. It will be the game, I think, that... Do you think it'll make or break PlayStation VR 2?
No, it doesn't. No,
yeah, because I don't see this game being this thing where it builds buzz and people are like, oh, wow, it's that good? I
think it'll be like Horizon. It'll be like, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of as far as it goes.
If a VR Half-Life game couldn't do it, I struggle to see some other type of IP doing it.
Yeah, if Alex was on this at launch, I might have a slightly different opinion.
Agree. We're going to get into PlayStation VR 2 here in a little bit, but the software for this, I mean, they said at CES there's going to be 30 games available at launch. So what? They're all old games.
Tell me how many games are going to be available a year from launch.
Right. And how many new games are going to be available.
I'm not worried about the launch. I just know how Sony does this stuff, and they come out strong, and then they never look at you again.
This game appears to be...
Ask the Vita owners about that.
Yeah. This game appears to be a game where you climb... And then you get to a plateau and you fight. Mm-hmm. And then you climb and then you fight. A lot of VR games are that way. Although some of them are just climb and just fight.
Sometimes you paddle.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you paddle, though. It looks like you're just riding along and someone else is paddling.
It shows a hand holding
it does?
a paddle. So this, to me, I imagine, is the beginning of the game.
Yeah. It looks to me like it's a climber cross with a shooting gallery, basically. Mm-hmm. Which is okay. I think a lot of VR games are that way.
Yeah. The only real appeal here to me is seeing some of these creatures like close up, like basically like seeing these things
in VR
where
the scale
and in front of you. Yeah, like even that shot of the big deer elk thing walking by. It's like, oh yeah, those things are
big. Yeah, they don't seem that big when you play.
Think about it, but like they're way bigger than Aloy.
Yeah, the game follows a disgraced former soldier named Rias. But Aloy is also in the game, and the game is reportedly loaded with popular characters from the franchise. So you should run into some friends and foes that you're familiar with from the Horizon games in this. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if this can sell the system. It looks like they're going to have 2 million units the first year.
I just don't think... I mean, I love Horizon.
Yeah.
I just don't see Horizon as a system...
Killer app.
Like, it's just not... it should be, arguably, but it just doesn't seem to be.
Yep.
And maybe that's not fair because it keeps coming out like right next to like the biggest game of the year between Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring. But like, I don't know, whatever. This thing is so good. They're so good, both of them, and they just don't quite capture the
mass audience,
zeitgeist the way it feels like they should.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It's a shame. Because I think it's worthy of it. The franchise has
absolutely. I do think the fact that they're doing that stupid MMO, which seems like a bad idea. Mm-hmm. But there is talk of a TV series.
Yeah, I saw that. There's TV series for every game now, Matt.
Well, that's Sony's going in hard on that.
It's not just Sony; it's every game franchise.
Sony established a studio for it. They're letting Neil Druckmann work on the Last of Us project.
Right.
I mean, they're serious about because that's all in house technically. For them. It's obviously a different division of Sony, but like it benefits everybody at Sony if they can turn their video game properties into successful films and TV franchises. That could have a very big effect on the bottom line for
straight
Sony.
Profit, homie.
Yeah.
It really is. If you're doing it all
got all
in-house.
this other good stuff in there, you should try to diversify that.
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
It's standard. And I mean, where's my Sly Cooper animated series?
Yeah, that makes too much sense.
Yeah,
it really does.
They tried it with Ratchet. It didn't really work, but I would love to see Sly Cooper come back in some form.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, another...
there is a Gran Turismo movie. That's right.
Yeah.
With Orlando
Bloom. Which is just...
Sure, why not? Okay.
I mean, if they can make a movie or TV show out of Werewolves Within, like, it's...
Yeah. I mean,
everything has a movie or TV show coming now. It's pretty insane.
It's just Ford v Ferrari. It can work, I guess.
Yep. The next game we're going to discuss, jump forward 2 months to get to the next PlayStation exclusive worth discussing, and you get to DLC, which is Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores. The first story DLC for Horizon Forbidden West takes place in Los Angeles. If you played the base game, you've already made it to California. You've seen San Francisco. And I will say, as someone who lived in San Francisco, seeing it in Horizon Forbidden West was an eye-opener and really awesome. It was something that my wife also really enjoyed, seeing San Francisco in a different state. This DLC mostly takes place in LA.
This week, apparently.
Yeah. Exactly. Prior DLC for the Horizon franchise has been really good.
Yeah, Frozen Wilds was very good.
It was really good. There's the Capitol Records building.
First time I died in that game in like 30 hours.
Right. Yeah, it was difficult too. They really ratcheted up the difficulty.
And actually, that's also happening slightly now in my Witcher 3 playthrough, where I'm starting to hit the DLC expansion stuff. And like the DLC expansion definitely had that thing of like, yeah, we know you walked through the last third of the game, and now we're going to start throwing stuff at you. The arachnomorphs that are like, this is specifically, we specifically designed these enemies based on we've seen how you play the game.
Yeah.
It's like, you just jump in, hit, and like, it's like, oh, these guys are so fast you can't catch them. Yeah. And it's like you have to find a way to immobilize them first. It's like, I imagine this is going to do the same thing where it's like, oh, yeah, we know all the things. It's like the DLC for this game and Frozen Wilds as well, was the advantage they had was like, we know all the things you can do. We know we know you finished the game. We know all the abilities you have. We know where you are. So we can go. We don't have to like make this like playable by a broad range of levels and character. We just be like, you better be this. You better have all this stuff. And you better be ready.
Yeah.
And, like, that was a lot of fun in Frozen Wilds.
Yeah.
Like, those fucking bear things.
I expect the same thing from Burning Shores.
I would think the same thing on
this.
Yep,
I think it's looking good.
And it's going
Again,
to integrate into the whole world, which is great. That's my favorite way to do open world DLC, is just like add another part of the map, make it all part of the cohesive whole. Like that's the best way to do that.
Yep.
So,
and again, that is
very, very excited about that one.
That is April 19th, just a day before 420 for those of you who celebrate.
A few days after taxes.
That's true. That's the less fun part of that time of the year. Next up, again, jump ahead 2 months once again to June 22nd. At least that's the release date right now for Final Fantasy 16. Now, this is a big third-party exclusive for PlayStation to have. I'm excited for this game. Everyone else seems kind of like lukewarm on it. I don't know why. Maybe people like kind of that. It's like this weird zone that Final Fantasy was in. Is there a word for it?
Dumb bullshit.
Yeah.
Is the word.
Okay. It feels like it's going back to what it was. Finally,
it does. It feels way more Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah.
Like the old Magitech.
Even
thing.
9 a little bit.
9 a little bit. Yeah. Well, 9 was also a throwback to 4 and 6.
Yep.
In a lot of ways. No, this looks way more like what I would in my head of alternate timelines, the way I would have preferred the aesthetic of Final Fantasy to develop. I mean, Final Fantasy VII really derailed this series in terms of aesthetics. It kind of did. Like, it just turned everything into an anime shonen series, and I don't care about that, and have never cared about that, and have always thought it looks stupid.
Yep,
and I
agree.
I don't mean Final Fantasy VII specifically. I mean that aesthetic. Pre-Final Fantasy VII, when it was just
because it all changed from that point.
Yeah, all of a sudden it was that plus the fact that, and I will go on about this forever, and I will go on about it again when that Suikoden collection comes out, because Suikoden is the exception that proves the rule from the PlayStation 1 era. JRPGs, like the big epic JRPGs, the Dragon Quests and the Final Fantasies and all that, and the Phantasy Stars, they used to be structured like epic novels. They used to be these big epic kind of War and Peace style, like sprawling tales. Final Fantasy VII, the plotting of that game comes out of the super hyper mega unbelievable popularity of Evangelion. Evangelion is responsible for a lot of the tone and a lot of the aesthetic choices in Square games on the PlayStation 1. And Final Fantasy VII kind of started that. And Final Fantasy VII's story is structured like a season of television. It's structured like an anime series. It's episodic. It kind of doesn't have an overarching thing to say. Like, taken as a whole, there's not really
a message,
a big thing. It's just sort of a bunch of events that happen, and then the characters are here at the beginning and they're here at the end.
Yeah,
it's like the point is what happens to the characters in this strip of time. It is not a giant overall story being told about a world or a place or a group of people. It is just sort of a plot, and because of the success of Final Fantasy VII, that became the template for JRPGs for years afterwards. And
not just Square.
Yeah, not just Square. No, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I loved...
It was a dead zone for me for that genre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about Suikoden is that Suikoden did not let go of the historical epic novel idea. Like, his Suikoden, particularly 1 and 2, as you will learn if you haven't played them when they come out. Suikoden 2 more than 1. 1 is actually a pretty short game when you know what you're doing. But with that collection that's coming out, Suikoden 2 is the greatest story told in an RPG on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
And it's
still up there.
It is a giant, like, Tolstoy-style epic. It's probably more based on Chinese epics, like Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but I haven't read those books, so I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But it is a structure and an aesthetic and an approach to material that is way more interesting and way more fitting, I think, of that genre. I think it carries itself through a 60-hour game better. Yeah. Because it takes almost that long to read one of those books sometimes. Yeah. And I've always preferred Final Fantasy when it would go back to fantasy. The older style, to the more I appreciate 9 a lot because of that. It's my favorite one on the PlayStation 1 too. For sure, because it is a bit of a throwback and it has its problems, but it does sort of remember where it came from in a way that the other two don't. And the other thing,
from 10 on,
and the other thing, 10 on for sure. 10 is the first Final Fantasy I couldn't finish.
Me too.
I got too bored and I just stopped.
Yeah.
And the thing about this one that I like is, and this started in 8, but it really came into its own in 10 and 13, is the weird magi. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but the way they things, technological things, and ships and airship. Like they've got circles all over them, and they've got like
that weird like
fins,
ovular like art style.
It's like I like especially 13.
Everything's rounded.
Everything looks like some kind of Tron disc or anything.
Yeah.
I hate that.
I agree.
I
didn't like it either.
This has a chunkiness to it. It has a clearly they're inspired by Game of Thrones, which I don't care about Game of Thrones anymore. But like clearly they're going for a more grounded, almost boots on the ground feel. Like these characters feel like they have weight, and they feel like they stand somewhere.
They feel like they're real.
I don't feel like a 12-year-old girl in a short dress is going to pop out and say that she's a 1,000-year-old dragon, so it's okay to draw porn of her. Like I feel like this is going to tell a fairly mature for what it is, kind of maybe aimed at 17-year-olds instead of 12-year-olds for once, kind of thing. I feel like this feels more like something I'm not going to be embarrassed to have on the television in front of other people.
That's a good way to put it.
And if you've grown up with Final Fantasy in the post-7 era, this is not what Final Fantasy is to you. And that's a valid statement.
It is.
Like that. This is a big change.
If you grew up from 7 on, that's Final Fantasy to you.
For sure. Even 12, which is my favorite of the modern era. You're still got the stupid kind of like Vaughn doesn't have a shirt on. If there's a weird Final Fantasy hit a point where they're like, it's not just a game, it's a fashion shoot kind of thing. It's just like, and it's just like it's so annoying. I never liked that, and there's some of that, and but it's limited to like the summons and the mystical stuff,
the flashier parts.
The normal humans seem to be dressed more or less in people clothing.
Like humans,
And so I'm cool with that. I don't know how I'm going to feel about the gameplay. It looks like it's that same kind of like we want to do like a hack and slash Kingdom Hearts style system, but we also can't let go of the RPG element, so we're going to like have a weird slowdown with pause thing that's mostly just going to be annoying because it doesn't quite work out the way you think.
And you'll be able to turn it off if you want, and most people will.
But I like what I see.
I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised by Final Fantasy 16. I think a lot of people may reject it at first and like may not just buy it sight unseen before reviews.
I mean, look, if you're younger than we are, or substantially younger, I can absolutely see that you look at that trailer and you have no idea you're looking at Final Fantasy. Like, it doesn't look like anything Final Fantasy has done
for the last, like,
since we were in high
years.
school.
Yeah, it's true.
When it really came outside of 9, and even 9 had that difference.
Had its moments.
And 9 had the super deformed characters, and you could tell it was sort of more of that old tradition. This is more when I look at the Final Fantasy 16 footage, I look at it and I think if you'd told me back in the Super Nintendo days about what great game graphics and game production would become, that's what I would have imagined Final Fantasy to become.
Yeah, not what it did become.
Not what it did.
Yeah, I agree.
And so there you go.
That's a big exclusive for PlayStation, man.
It is.
Final Fantasy 16, again, coming June 22nd. I know a lot of people right now are slagging it or whatever.
So
but
is that's only on PlayStation or is it also on PC?
It's only on PlayStation for now, but
yeah, it'll be on everything in a year.
I think you'll probably get at least
that's
6 months exclusive. Yeah.
So that's purely there's no PC version.
Right.
It's just
day one. There's no PC version. Yep. Yeah. And we'll see how long that lasts. I don't think they've announced yet how long the console exclusive is for it. But I think we can all guarantee it'll at least come to PC and probably a year later Xbox, if not 6 months. We'll see how that all goes. And again, development for these systems, it's not as bad as it was last generation as far as proprietary tech that you have to write to the metal for. So I think it's easier to port games from PS5 and have that Xbox Series version ready to go whenever your contract expires. But that's a big exclusive. That's a big get for PlayStation. We'll see if it performs for them. I have a feeling that it's going to. So again, June 22nd. And that is the last solid release date we have for PlayStation, except for Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which right now is scheduled for Q4. Do you think that that's going to happen?
Yes. Insomniac hits its targets.
It does. Yep. There's also another game
they wouldn't say it if they weren't sure.
Yeah. And right now, this is just fall 2023. We don't have a month or anything like that.
My guess is this is late October, early November. It's going to be it's their big holiday.
It's the God of War window, basically. Wherever God of War was released this year, that's where this game.
When do we need to put this out to qualify for the Game Awards?
That's when it's releasing. And I agree with you. They'll get it done. Insomniac will get the game done in time. It always does. I can't remember the last time Insomniac delayed a game.
I don't know. Didn't they move Ratchet up at one point?
I think maybe they did. Yeah, from where they initially were going to release it.
Now, this is one of the smoothest run studios in the industry.
Yeah.
They will if they're saying it's going to be done by then, it'll be done by then.
Still really not a lot of info. All we have is this little teaser trailer. It's only about 45 seconds. It's a minute long.
I'm sure when they do their showcase thing in the summer, they'll blow it out.
Yeah. Have you caught wind of anything about the game from being in Marvel circles or anything?
Nope.
No?
This has been very, very locked down.
They really have kept the lid on everything. There's no information really floating out there. But
Insomniac also doesn't have... Like, the other thing, of course, is that one of the reasons for that is that nothing has been shown, which means nothing has had to have been sent to places outside of Insomniac.
True. Yep.
And Insomniac is pretty much leak-proof because everybody loves working there and doesn't want to risk anything and doesn't want to do anything to
I think you're right,
rock
Matt.
the boat.
I really think that Insomniac stuff doesn't leak because the people who work there respect the company.
Yeah. Like...
Naughty Dog, too.
Keep your employees happy, and they will not
they don't want to mess it up. Yeah, they're all pulling the rope in the same direction. So I'm really excited for this. Not as excited as I would be for some other stuff. I do love Spider-Man, and I thought the first game was amazing.
Well, like I said, my top looked forward to game. Come on, top anticipated games. What was it? Starfield and Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, this was
because those
top two.
Yeah, well, because this is so known.
It is.
Like I'm not looking forward to this in the same way because it's just like, oh, another awesome Insomniac.
Yeah, we also
game.
know it's going to be awesome.
It's sort of like
there's
Zelda.
no mystery. It's going to be an amazing Spider-Man.
Like I don't need to look forward to Zelda. I know what that is. It's going to be fine. It's going to be good. Spider-Man's going to be a third great Spider-Man game. Oh well,
Yeah.
Whereas Starfield and Jedi Survivor, I have a lot more questions about. Like those are less sure bets.
Yep.
So my curiosity puts those higher. Spider-Man 2 is like, the sure bet that the thing you can always fall back. It's like I don't need to worry about you. You're going to get here and you're going to be great, and I don't need to think about you until then.
Yep.
Basically,
I agree. Next PlayStation 5 exclusive that's supposed to come out this year. We'll decide whether we think that's true or not. Is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is the second installment in the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy.
I would have to think that this being slated, I mean, maybe it won't make it, but this being slated for fall, Q4, would have to be why 16 is slated for summer.
You'd think?
I mean,
I really struggle to think they put both these games out in the same year. But
I don't think they consider these to be
competitive.
I think they can. 7 Remake is its own thing in a lot of ways, and
I mean, in more ways than one.
My main thing, I hate this game.
Yeah.
But honestly, the people who love this game have waited long enough.
Yeah.
Like if you can't get this thing out by the end of this year, fuck you.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's no reason people should have to wait years for this shit.
Yeah. Especially after the way the remake ended.
If you plan this to be a series like this, get on with it. Start working on the next one before you're done with the previous one. You're a giant company. Overlap this shit.
Yeah.
Don't make people wait. I mean, you're already at this point, it's clear that if you first played Final Fantasy Remake when it came out, when you were like a freshman in high school, you're going to be out of college by the time this thing's done.
It's crazy.
And that's stupid.
That is stupid.
It was stupid when Kingdom Hearts did it, and it's stupid here.
A lot of people are pissed off with the way the first remake ended.
Yeah, see, I think that's one of the only interesting things about it.
Yeah.
Is that they are, not only are they changing things, but they are acknowledging the change in the story.
Yeah.
And they're not, if you're going to change things, if you're going to not do everything the same way as you did before, then yeah, go for it. Even, in Evangelion did that too. Yeah. The rebuild of Evangelion movies eventually revealed that they are not a remake of the series. They are a sequel to the series. So this is kind of a remake, but it's also kind of a sequel to the original PlayStation game. Because I think there's going to be a thing as you go forward where you are trying to bring the timeline back to the events of the original game.
Interesting.
I think they're going to have to restore the timeline. This is multiverse shit.
Because this one really kind of embraces the whole new parallel timeline.
Oh, yeah.
It breaks pretty much completely
They've literally
away.
got creatures in it that are there because things are changing.
Right. Yeah. So my guess is this probably does not make it this year. I really think it'll probably come in Q1 of
that's probably
2024.
Likely, but they really should try to get it out this year.
I agree.
They're taking
way too long to get these games done.
Yeah.
I agree. But anyway, as of right now, they're just saying, I think they're saying winter of...
winter can mean anything.
Doesn't winter technically start in, like, December?
Yeah, technically, winter would mean Q1.
Right.
Unless you put it out on Christmas.
Right.
Usually.
Which is possible.
You usually say holiday if it was coming before the end of the year.
I'd be surprised if we get it, I guess is what I'm getting at. Next up, Death Stranding 2. Just shown at the Game Awards 2022.
Yeah, I have to assume this is a couple years away.
Do you think it's still a couple years away?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, my guess is it's been in development already for a couple years. And some of the stuff probably was already plotted out.
But I'm guessing this is next year, if we're lucky.
I think I'd agree with you on that.
We need another Game Awards blowout.
You're right. Keely's got to get all the mileage he can out of Kojima.
Kojima's got to show up in person.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point, though. He doesn't show up when the game isn't imminent. When the game is imminent, that's when he makes the flight across the Pacific and he shows up in person.
He does the in-person appearance to really promote it, and then he shows up at the end of that year to pick up the award. That's what happened.
But again, this was just shown for the first time like a month and a half ago, so it's very rare for a PlayStation exclusive to be announced and then released in less than 12 months. It just typically doesn't happen. Yeah. So chances of this, I'd put it at like 15 to 20% of coming out this year.
Nah, it's generous, I think.
Okay, next up, a game that's probably even less likely, Marvel's Wolverine.
Oh, this is 2025.
You think so?
Yeah,
you think it's that far out?
I know this. This is 2025, 2026 at the earliest.
The point I'm making here, though, is this is the type of stuff that I had to put in here for the preview because there is nothing announced.
Yeah.
There's nothing announced other than this stuff.
Yeah, this is Sony's kind of going Nintendo style this time.
Yeah,
like this is normally Nintendo's things. We know everything that comes out in the first half of the year. We're like, what's the second half? Who knows? We got to wait for directs.
Yeah,
and like Sony seems to be adopting that policy.
I would say this is 5% chance of coming this year.
Zero.
Yeah, because you're right. Because Insomniac's finishing up Spider-Man 2 for the end of the year.
And this is a different team.
It is,
but you don't put both these out in the same year. You don't even talk about them in the same year.
I think there's probably a roving group of people at Insomniac that are like the finishers who roll from one project to the next as they're being finished. That team is going to be working on Spider-Man 2. They're not going to be involved in this.
This is, I'll tell you with 99% certainty, 2025.
Yep.
At the earliest, 2025, 2026 is what you're looking at for this thing.
Okay. Here's one that may be more likely, but maybe not, and that is the Silent Hill 2 remake. Also a PlayStation 5 exclusive coming from Bloober Team.
This I would assume is this year.
You think it'll make this year?
I think it'll be like a Halloween.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What makes you believe that?
I just don't think Bloober Team would be as far along in this trailer as
this trailer shows a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty lengthy, and a lot of it's in engine.
Oh yeah, almost all of it is, and it shows a lot of different parts of the game. If you know,
Konami, I just don't see Konami having a long promotional period for this because they're so cheap about everything. So I think if they're showing this, it's less than a year away.
How weird is it just seeing a trailer for a game you care about with the Konami logo?
Pretty weird.
Corner with the Konami watermark. It's been a long time since I've been this excited for a Konami game.
Give Castlevania to someone who cares about it.
Yeah, that's what should happen next, actually.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big question to me. Like, there's part of me that would almost rather just have a decent remaster of the original.
Oh, really? You're afraid that they're going to...
I'm not afraid, but it's just like there's no good way to play the original right now because that remaster sucked. The HD remake, whatever it was. So I would, and part of me would prefer like a way to play the original on modern hardware without having to go through a bunch of hoops and user mods on the PC and everything, or like drag out the old PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3.
Yeah,
which I guess is fine, but like
they did get a lot of the band back together for this though. Like Akira Yamaoka is doing the music, which is really, really important. Let's be honest. If you're going to remake Silent Hill 2 without his music...
One of the things that I think you learn quickly when it comes to bringing classic things forward into a modern version or a modern remake is you learn how many people didn't understand it in the first place.
Yeah.
And sometimes the people who didn't understand it are the ones who make the remake, right. And then you're in trouble.
It's true. Yeah,
and as almost anyone who is a DC fan can attest, if you end up giving something to someone who doesn't understand how the character or the story works, you end up with Batman v Superman. And I would much prefer not to have the Batman v Superman of Silent Hills.
Yeah. By the way, you should listen to Matt and I when we're discussing like whether we think these games are coming out or not, because in a week you need to fill out the Sifted Fantasy Challenge.
And that's the thing is, like, if I left this off my fantasy team, it wouldn't be because I don't think it's coming out. It would be because I don't trust the
Too risky.
reviews.
Yeah. Like, I would put this at 50-50 to make it this year.
It feels about right. And then, like, I would put it at less to be good.
To be good?
Yeah.
Really?
Not that I doubt Bloober Team, but it's not, it's that, and I know people hate Bloober Team for some reason now, because they think that,
Really?
Yeah. Bloober Team is very hated right now.
Why?
Partly because people decided they didn't like their games, and also because the medium apparently was... the end of the medium is very odd in that they sort of try to redeem a pedophile murderer. And
I didn't notice that.
There was a little bit happening there. There's one of the options you can choose is sort of in that realm.
I didn't notice that.
And considering some of the other characters in the game that do not get a chance at redemption, there's sort of a thing of like, what is that about? And there's a whole question about portraying mental illness and which again I think you'd run into in Silent Hill 2. Yep,
for sure.
At the very least with Angela, or what's her name? I think that's her name. And the whole thing is just like, I don't know. And even if they do a really good job, you don't know how reviewers are going to react to one of their favorite games being remade in a different way. Mm-hmm. And there's probably going to be people that just can't even get over the fact that it's a different voice.
Sure.
For James.
Character model looks a lot different too.
Yeah. So I just don't trust the reviews on this. Not that I think the reviews are going to be wrong or biased or what. I just I have a hard time imagining that a remake of one of the most beloved horror games is going to get universal praise.
Well, it'll be interesting to see who reviews it.
Right.
Because I think if people like us review it, who played the originals when they came out, our perspective is going to be different, I think, on this versus somebody who is maybe 25 or 26 years old, who have heard people talk about how awesome Silent Hill 2 is, but maybe hasn't gone back and played it because it looks creaky. Fair enough. I can understand that perspective.
Or haven't played it because there's no way to play it easily.
That's true. Easily. Yeah. I hear you. So I think it's 50-50 to come out this year. I'm a little more optimistic on whether the game will be good or not because I do like Bloober Team. I think Bloober Team makes great games. Technically, they've been limited in the past. Like, their engine still isn't quite up to scratch visually. But as far as creating tension and horror, I think they're great at it. So they have the intangibles, I think, to make a decent horror game. And obviously the bones of Silent Hill 2. Unless you're an idiot, it'd be really hard to screw it up, I think. So I'm a little more optimistic, but again, 50-50 comes out this year.
Are they going to soften James? Are they going to soften, Bloober Team probably not. They don't shy away from
they don't pull
hard
punches,
stuff,
really.
But who knows who's really in charge of calling some of these shots? Like Bloober Team may not.
I hope it's not Konami. Let's be honest.
Right.
I hope Konami's just letting them do their thing.
Silent Hill 2's story it's dark. Jacob's Ladder, David Lynch stuff. Like it's there's an element of that like there were games that did stuff like that on the PS2 that they got away with it because no one was paying attention.
Yeah.
No one was looking at the PS2 from the mainstream media at the time. Yeah. It took GTA 3 to do that.
That's true. Yep.
And no one was looking at Silent Hill 2. And I remember Silent Hill 2 was one of the first things I ever did any field segments for Tech TV back in the day. And I interviewed Takeyoshi Sato and some of the localizers, and I think we did Yamaoka at one point. They pushed it pretty hard. And but I remember how influenced by American culture they were, especially Sato, and how they were the certain something of Silent Hill 2 in particular, but also 1 and 3, but especially 2, was that you were playing a horror game presented in English, made by Japanese developers who were giving you their interpretation and how they loved American horror through their filter and shot back at you. And it was a cultural prism that just didn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons Silent Hill 1 and 2 particularly were so fascinating, where it was a perspective on horror that literally didn't exist anywhere else.
And that's something like that happening in games?
Yeah.
Very rare.
Oh, yeah. And that was one of the reasons it happening. Even Sato, I think, at the time said one of the reasons this is a game is because we couldn't afford to make this movie. Because budgets for live-action movies just weren't that high in Japan at the time. And so that was why so much is animated, too, is because it's cheaper. But, Is Bloober Team going to be able to capture that aspect of Silent Hill 2? My guess would be no.
That's a tough ask.
And I'm not saying that everybody who loves Silent Hill 2 loves it because of that. But I bet even if you didn't notice, your brain did.
Oh, yeah, subconsciously.
And there's going to be something, you're going to feel something's off.
There's a disconnect. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. Yeah.
And it just, like you say, the bones are there, but there's more to the body than the bones.
Yeah.
And if Silent Hill 2 comes out not feeling right, you're going to have a disaster on your hands among the fan base. Maybe, it could still blow up among non-fans. It could still be a big hit. With
I would argue you're probably smarter to target it towards the non-fans if you want it to do really well.
You're going to have the fans one way. We're going to be at least morbidly curious, right? Like we're already going to be paying attention. I think you should be targeting people who just want a horror game, regardless of whether they know what Silent Hill is or not.
Yep. I remember I went to cover one of the Silent Hill movies when it came out. And Akira Yamaoka was like the talent that we got to interview for the big premiere. He was there because he had done the music for the film. He had scored it. And I remember our talent could not pronounce his name. No matter how many times I told her. I'm like, Akira, like the anime. She had never heard of the anime. She's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, it's the most popular anime ever made. And then Yamaoka, forget it. And so she finally got Akira. And when she interviewed him, she just kept calling him Akira. It was so bizarre. Anyway, I'm not saying who it was.
Yes.
Yeah, you may be able to. It was after I left working with you, and I was working with somebody else, and that's all I'm going to say.
I knew it wouldn't be our people.
Nope, because they knew how to pronounce it. They knew what Akira was as well. So anyway,
he's like, what is this thing called Akira?
Exactly.
That's a Streamline dub joke.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Silent Hill 2 Remake. Again, I think it's 50-50 whether it makes it out this year. Next up, a game called Stellar Blade. This game was formerly known as Project Eve. It's basically an action hack and slash from a company called Shift Up Corp. Basically, you are dropped into an extinct Earth. You play as a character named Eve. Surprise, surprise. And basically, it's your job to save Earth and protect the surviving citizens of Zion. So it has kind of an eco angle to it. You're trying to save Earth from... It looks like it's already been destroyed. This game's kind of flying under the radar. Doesn't have a hard release date yet. But it is a PlayStation 5 exclusive and one to maybe keep an eye on. And then really the only other big PlayStation exclusive game coming this year is a game called The Dark Pictures Switchback, which is a PlayStation VR 2 exclusive. It does not have a release date yet at all, but it is basically the sequel to what I think a lot of people thought was the best PlayStation 1 VR game, the rail shooter from Supermassive. So,
because this is also...
a rail shooter from Supermassive.
Yeah, it's just they labeled it Dark Pictures because that's their thing and not Until Dark now.
Yep. So it's set.
Dawn, right?
It's set in all of the Dark Pictures games.
Yeah. And
so
the first one, Rush of Blood, was great.
Yeah, it was.
It really was good.
It was also one of the few games that did not make me sick.
Yeah.
I mean, I was able to play that game without getting nauseous, even though you literally are riding on a roller coaster the entire time.
But that's a situation that your brain has context for.
Yeah.
So like it probably
helps. Yeah. Helps you get over
Part of the
it.
problem is that your brain doesn't know how to interpret the different signals from your eyes and your ears,
right?
And your balance organs in your ears. Whereas if you're on a rail, you're like your brain's like, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah,
we're fine.
I think there may be more hype for this than there is for the Horizon game for PlayStation VR 2.
I mean, well, the other thing about this is it's going to be an easier game to just slap a headset on your friend and say, play this.
Yeah.
Horizon, you're going to have to go, here's the intro, now you got to learn how to climb, now you got to
learn how to swim, and now you...
VR stuff works better, certainly as a social aspect. VR works better as a pick up and play.
Yeah, and this is just point and shoot.
You don't need to explain, you're on a train, point the thing and shoot things.
That's it.
Done.
Yeah. But again, this does not have a hard release date, at least I didn't see one, although Vincent is saying it's February 22nd. Interesting.
I would be stunned if this wasn't launch.
He's saying it is launch. But the research that I did said that there was no release date for it. So,
well, I mean, I didn't even know pre-orders went up.
Yeah,
for the PlayStation.
I was digging around though, preparing for this show, and I didn't see a release date anywhere. But maybe he saw the story or something.
Are the pre-orders out? Can you still get one?
You can pre-order at PlayStation.com. That's the only place you can pre-order them.
That's even weirder.
Yeah. And which brings us to finally, just generally, PlayStation VR 2. It is really PlayStation's big objective for 2023 is to launch...
Certainly the first part of it.
Yeah, its next VR HMD. Matt, how do you think this thing's going to do? Yeah.
Not a chance. I mean, look, I'm going to get one so we can fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
But, like, I wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, this is... I do not understand... fool me once, shame on me.
I'm not buying it. I bought the last one, and I felt like I was burned. I feel bad for recommending it to you guys. Still, I feel guilty about recommending it.
I'm keeping the receipt to write it off for taxes next year.
For sure. Definitely. No doubt about it. I do think it's going to be vastly superior.
Is absolutely a business expense. There is no personal interest in this for me.
So Johnny is also verifying the PlayStation Store says Switchback is February 22nd. So it is
that will
launch
definitely
game.
be one of the ones I get.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that'll be the case.
I will definitely get Horizon and a Switchback. And we'll see.
Yeah, this Firewall game doesn't look too bad.
Tell me what you're interested in. Or buy your own games. I don't fucking care. Get codes for them, I guess. If you can.
I will. My guess is that the first 1 million units sell real fast.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a rush at the beginning, but it's like...
And then I think they'll struggle to sell the second 1 million units, and then it'll pick up around the holidays, and they'll probably get their 2 million units sold by the end of the year.
But it's not going to be some kind of weird runaway hit. I mean, I just don't.
I think you're going to be able to walk into stores and buy them most of the year.
Yeah.
And then towards the holidays...
I think there'll be a thing like by the summer where you're like, oh, where have they stacked all the PlayStation VRs behind the counter at Best Buy today?
Right. Yeah. I mean, technically, the technology that you're getting for the money, it's a good deal.
No, it's great.
You're really
the
getting...
hardware is rock solid.
Yeah.
But
it's just... I think a lot of people are like me and they got burned on the first one.
That price and that... I mean, it's just... look, it's not like I'm looking at the product and thinking this is a bad product.
Yeah.
It's that I don't trust Sony to support it past launch.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, too, to see, because a lot of people bought Quest 2. And a lot of people bought it for $300 before they increased the price to $400. So it'll be interesting to see if it can pull people away.
Quest 2 also isn't trying to sell you $70 games.
You're right. But I think Quest 2 is a gateway drug. I think for a lot of people who got it, they're like, oh, I get VR now, and I like it. At least a lot of my friends that are casual players.
I just think I think Quest 2 is definitely the template. And, I mean, look, I appreciate that Sony made the fucking Bugatti of VR headsets for this thing. It's gorgeous. The resolution's amazing. The foveated rendering's great. The eye tracking looks great. The controllers look great. Like, it looks to still have the same level of comfort and still does, according to people who played it at various events.
Good ventilation
they're making a luxury vehicle of a VR headset. But I don't think that's the future. I think the future is this Quest 2 sort of pick up and play, slap it on your head, play some stuff, put it down.
And then give it to Grandma.
Yeah, exactly.
Let Grandma put it on.
I mean, look, I love that they're trying to do this super high quality Horizon VR game, but I think that the future of the lifeblood of VR is Beat Saber.
It is.
It's not these high-end,
Which,
Avatar level experiences. It is little toys.
The other thing,
it's apps.
It feels like PlayStation was so unprepared for launch. Why did they just... And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but I'll spoil a little bit of the discussion. Why did they just now announce at CES that Beat Saber is coming to PlayStation VR 2? Who, in their right mind, when they're sitting in meetings for this for months and months, wasn't like, the most important thing we can do is make sure that Beat Saber is available for this on launch day. Yeah. There's nothing
even in
more
their presentation
important.
Where they're like, this is our launch thing. And like Beat Saber wasn't in there.
There's nothing more important.
And there were even people that were assuming that Beat Saber was in there and they just didn't talk about it because it was so obvious.
Yeah.
But I didn't think... I think that recent announcement is... I think they just finished that deal.
They probably did.
Whatever that was that took so long, I think that was the closest they could get to
I feel like they were asleep at the wheel while this thing was being built. And they're waiting to figure out how to market it and promote it. I don't understand it. Mm-hmm. It's the most popular VR game by 20 miles, and you don't have it ready? Honestly, Beat Saber 2 should have been done, dusted, exclusive launch game for PlayStation VR 2. That's the kind of things you do when you want your VR HMD to be a success out of the gate. You take the most popular game ever released for VR, you make a better new version for it, and you pay the money to get it exclusively for your platform. What are they doing? They put the cart ahead of the horse, I feel like, in a lot of ways with PlayStation VR 2.
Well, I think it feels like there's a point of it feels like they were too far down the road.
Yeah,
like
maybe
you've sunk so much cost in this. It has to come out. It has to, because especially like it feels like right now is a bad time to release this thing too. With the inflation's starting to recover a little bit, but the economy is not amazing. People do not have a lot of extra money laying around.
Yeah. A lot of people still can't find a PlayStation 5 or haven't got one yet. They've only sold 30 million still at this point.
Even if you're talking about like finally you can get a PlayStation 5. Like say, so if you're trying to sell a headset to that person, you're asking that person to put down more than $1,000 before taxes and before buying any games for the thing.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
What? Yep. Who is this for?
I don't know. We'll see. Again, I think the hardcore fanboys will snatch them up.
Sure.
Million sold, no problem, pretty much. They may even get 1 million pre-orders.
But considering you've got a potential audience of 100 million people for a console, selling them 2 million of something is not particularly impressive.
It's 2% penetration of your install base, ultimately. So,
and then you're talking about how much, what percentage of that user base is going to buy each game. Are you ever going to be able to justify throwing that much money at a VR game the way you did with that Horizon thing again if you're selling maybe 100,000 copies?
Has it not already proven that it won't?
Right.
I mean, it kind of has. So, buyer beware.
I just don't know what's the goal here? What's the overall target?
We're telling you right now, buyer beware with PlayStation VR 2. If you buy it and you're disappointed, don't snap back at us because we're trying to tell you right now. And then finally, Matt, before we move on from PlayStation, what about all the games as a service? Do you think any of, what did they say? There's going to be 10 before, the first quarter of 2024?
Yeah, they said that.
Doesn't that mean there's going to have to be some of them that come out this year?
Yeah.
What about Bungie? That was one thing Pachter said. He said he thought Bungie would have a game this year for PlayStation.
That seems unlikely.
He's like, his argument was, I don't think that PlayStation would have spent that much for Bungie if Bungie had not shown them something that they had been working on that could be completed in relatively short time frames.
My feeling when they bought Bungie, and turned out to be right, was that they wanted them as basically in-house consultants for everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, that was in the press release.
Yeah. And it was exactly what they did 3 months later. And announced they were doing this thing, and Bungie is advising. They want Bungie's expertise on this.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons Bungie's being allowed to continue Destiny 2 on all platforms under their own auspices without having Sony making any decisions for them. I'm sure that was part of the deal. It's you want what we know, you want our magic touch, we get to keep doing the thing that benefits us and just us.
Yeah.
So I would be very surprised if Sony was able to convince Bungie to splinter off part of their team to make another thing for Sony.
Yeah.
I think Bungie is there as high level and maybe even embedded consultants for other projects under the Sony umbrella. For the time being, I think eventually, sure, Bungie will probably. I think it's too soon for that. I don't think there's been enough time.
Some of these games are starting to leak out, early test footage. Over the weekend, there was a third-person shooter, literally 5 seconds of footage leaked out on Reset Era.
And they clamped
that
down
was
on
shut down
fast.
Real fast.
Yeah.
Literally within half a day, it was gone and taken down. So some of the stuff is starting to leak out. But Matt, that game looked like it had been in development for a week. Mm-hmm. This stuff is still really early. I don't think we'll see Jade Raymond's game this year.
No, definitely not. I mean, but we'll see. I can never even remember. Is it Factions?
What are you talking about?
The Last of Us multiplayer thing is its own thing now.
We might see that this year.
That'll be
only because they have the manpower to brute force something like that through the pipeline and get it done.
It's been years.
It has, yeah, you're right. Because those rumors have been swirling about that for a while, so they've been working on it.
So that's one of them.
You're probably right. That'll probably make it this year. But again, we have really no footage hardly of that.
Yeah. I'm going to say a lot of the second half of the stuff we don't know about yet. I bet a lot of that's those things.
Is that stuff? Yeah. My guess is it probably comes from the smaller guys that are in on these deals, like Fire Sprite and studios like that. Mm-hmm. My guess is they aren't big blockbuster games as a service. There may be a game with a really clever idea that doesn't have over-the-top production value, so to speak.
Yeah.
But still, the idea is conveyed.
And there's some things they mentioned in the past that might have been adapted into those things. I could see Firewalk becoming one of those.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be thrilled about it. But I'm very skeptical about the game as a service stuff until you show it to me.
Me too.
What was the one?
We're not big fans. Let's be honest.
What was the
of
thing
that genre
coming for Xbox? It starts with an A. It's a shooter. Aeon's End or it's soon.
I don't know.
It's got.
Is it a game as a service?
No, it's a shooter, but it was it was that first next gen game they showed years ago with like the demo. It was just like running around a little wasteland blowing stuff up. It begins with an A.
I don't know. Maybe someone in chat will know.
It comes out like in March or April, but like I was like, and suddenly I saw a thing that said like, oh, this is all single player. There's no multiplayer. There's no online component. It's just a big single player like shooter. And I'm like, oh, now you got my attention.
Yeah.
Like, so so like it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Like to do that. So what was the other one that changed my Redfall? They clarified it's like, oh, everyone's comparing our game to Left 4 Dead, but it's actually more like our Far Cry 2.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now you have
that was encouraging.
You had my attention. Now you have my curiosity, kind of thing. I was like,
yeah. I can't talk about that game, unfortunately. There's an NDA on the beta.
Redfall.
It sucks. Yeah.
Atomic Heart. That's what.
That's
it was.
it. Yeah, Atomic Heart. Good call, Cinetyke. Shane A28. Thank you for Twitch Prime.
But yeah, my opinion on Redfall has suddenly shifted when they said that. Especially because they didn't just say Far Cry. They specified Far Cry 2, which is rough. But it is one of those games where, like, oh, I wish you'd followed some of these threads more than the way Far Cry 3 took it.
I would say maybe think about something in the middle.
Okay. I mean, that's already better. That's already better than what I was imagining.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't want another Left 4 Dead thing. Yeah. I don't care about that.
Yeah. But otherwise, that's it for PlayStation, what we know of for 2023 right now. So really the big push is PlayStation VR 2, the first half of the year. And there are some big exclusives, most of them third-party exclusives, I would add, not first-party. And then my guess is Spider-Man's their big second half exclusive, and maybe they slide one other first-party thing in there somewhere.
You could slide one of the game as a services in there alongside Spider-Man and not really be in competition.
Yep. But as of right now, looking a little bit like a lean year for PlayStation, I would argue. Coming on the heels of last year, that's a little concerning, I think.
I mean, last year was only like 3 exclusives.
Yeah.
Which, like...
That's what I'm saying. Like, where are the games?
I mean, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think we'll find out more of them. I'm not worried about how many games there will be for PlayStation. I'm worried about whether I'm going to care about
the quality.
them.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yep.
That's the issue for me, is like these games as a service. I mean, game as a service, I'm not going to discount you, but you're going to have to prove yourself to make me think that you're worth playing, especially if you're still going to charge $70 for it.
Yeah, we're not the types that just gobble up games as a service like some others do. So we have a pretty skeptical eye towards that.
And even when I I certainly didn't dislike Avengers. I like the campaign I played.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
But the game as a service part sucked.
It did. I never hardly played it. After I finished the campaign, I tried to, man. I couldn't do it. So anyway, there you go. That's PlayStation for 2023. Next, we're going to talk about Nintendo. My platform of the year for 2022 was a Nintendo Switch. Can Nintendo keep the momentum going in 2023? You're kind of right. The answer is kind of no.
It's the same thing as Sony. We don't know what the hell happens after June.
You're right. It really is kind of that way.
Now, to be fair, Nintendo does this all the time.
It does. Yeah. And
we routinely do not know what the second half of the year is for Nintendo.
And it routinely delivers pretty heavily.
But there is a bigger concern this year for me, and that is because I think, and I don't seem to be the only one, I think Tears of the Kingdom is the last great Switch game. I think it's the last big Switch project.
It's the last announced big Switch project.
Anything else of this caliber, I think you are holding for the next system.
So that's the first thing I want to discuss. Will there be new Nintendo hardware announced this year?
I think so. Released this year? Probably not. But I think this is where they finally admit that
I think so too.
After Zelda's out, after Zelda sold its copies, guess what? Here comes another system that you'll also be able to play Zelda on.
Then it would actually run
better
and
run better. And you're gonna, for sure. Yeah. Why haven't we heard about Metroid Prime 4? Because Metroid Prime 4 is on the next system.
Yeah, I would say 65% that they'll announce a new hardware this year. It's been 6 years.
Yep, 6 years this March.
Time. Yeah, it's time. And I agree with you. I don't think it'll release this year. I think it'll release March of next year.
Yeah.
So 15 months from now, a year and a few months from now, would be my guess. And I also agree with you, there will be Tears of the Kingdom Deluxe or whatever that they'll release for whatever Nintendo's next hardware is. This is something that Pachter agrees with us on. He also believes that Nintendo will announce new hardware this year. It's just time. It's actually past time for Nintendo to do it.
And there's things that, I do think that Zelda's the last big Switch, but how in the world were there not 2 3D Mario games on this system?
I don't know.
How the hell did you... Both people seem to. I forget that Odyssey came out the same year as Breath of the Wild.
It's been 6 years since a 3D Mario game.
Part of me can kind of, sort of get my head around and understand the idea that it takes you 6 years to make a Zelda follow-up.
Yeah. That's still a long time, man. That's still a really long time.
But, like, more than just making another frickin' Mario game, considering... Like, I think you pretty much nailed the formula on that one, other than, I think, I've complained about the basically collectible inflation, where, like, if I get the same collectible for doing a really hard platforming section as I do from butt stomping a sand lump, like, you have sort of, it's not quite the same as getting a gold star in Mario 64, is it?
Yeah, it's true.
It doesn't feel the same. But I do feel like the formula was pretty much nailed down, and I don't understand why you could, especially, I mean, look, you already kind of had the proof of concept in Bowser's Fury.
Which, that's the other thing I would say.
If that had been a full game, I would have been perfectly happy with it.
Bowser's Fury is pretty great. And there was a lot of work that went into that.
It's a really good evolution of, like, both the ideas in 3D World and Odyssey. Like,
but it wasn't 6 years of good work.
No.
I don't know what's going on there, honestly. I mean, here's the thing, Zelda. When you start
Kirby game,
exactly.
My friend texted me.
Kirby game.
My friend texted me yesterday about Kirby. He's like, because apparently his kid and his nephew were arguing over Kirby and whether Kirby could swallow a black hole. And he said, "How powerful? What do you know about Kirby?" I was like, "Well, how powerful is Kirby?" And I basically said, Kirby is one of the most powerful beings in fiction.
Yeah.
And he's like, if he was in the Marvel universe, how powerful would he be? I'm like, Galactus would need to worry.
Right, he can inhale Galactus.
And I sent him the little bio screen of him where he says he describes him as a small pink being of infinite power. Like, that's canon.
Yeah.
Like, that's how Hell Laboratories describes their own character. Infinite power.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? That's really... And like, he's like, so he could swallow black... I'm like, he could swallow the black hole, and then he could use the powers of the black hole to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah, because he could then just...
And he would absorb the abilities of the black hole.
Yeah.
And then he could spit the black hole out.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's actually kind of scary. I'm like, Kirby is an eldritch being.
He's terrifying.
Kirby is one of the most terrifying creatures in all of fiction.
It is.
And if Kirby ever realized that about himself, we might be in trouble. But he would never realize that about himself because he's Kirby.
Right. It's not his disposition to be that way. Yeah.
So yes, the legend of Kirby is spreading among the non-hardcore.
That's funny.
The kids know. The kids know. I was like, they're not arguing whether he could like beat Thanos. They're arguing whether he could eat a black hole.
Yep.
That is an instinctual knowledge of Kirby's power level that I'm glad the new generation has already.
Yep, absolutely. So we're in agreement. Nintendo's probably going to announce new hardware this year. 4K. You assuming it'll be able to play games in 4K?
No, I don't think it will.
Really?
No. I think you'll be lucky if it's 2K.
Really?
Because it's not.
That would be very Nintendo to do a 2K system.
Yeah. Look at all 2,000. That's way more thousand than before. The one thing that could push them into 4K, I think, is if they are really looking at what I think the success of the Mario movie is going to be. There is a real chance that, and if they're thinking ahead, they might realize this, that if that Mario movie is a big hit, and I think it will be.
I do too.
Like, I have not seen audience reaction to a trailer like this since Spider-Man No Way Home.
I haven't really seen anyone say anything bad about it.
People freak out when that thing plays in theater. I saw, and it doesn't matter what movie it is. Like, it could be.
You go to a horror movie,
and people are still like Mario. It's unbelievable. Like, everybody in the whole theater is like, wow. And it's just like.
Oh man!
And so I think that movie is going to make $1 billion.
I think so too. It's going to be huge. Yeah.
And I think there's a chance that if that penetrates the zeitgeist, like the way the Sonic thing. I mean, the fact that you hear kids just going around talking about Sonic the fucking Hedgehog again,
I know,
because of those movies,
it's
is
really
incredible.
Weird. It is.
But Sonic, that's what kids expect Sonic to look like now.
Yeah.
And the Mario movie could create a thing where you expect that's what Mario's going to look like.
Yeah.
And,
so they need the hardware.
You need more powerful hardware
Yeah.
to make that. Because one of the most frustrating things about those trailers for that movie is you look at that and you're like, if Nintendo was putting out hardware like Sony does,
that's what Mario games would look like. I know. I felt the same way when I watched it. Yep.
And so yeah, part of that movie kind of pisses me off.
Yep.
And the room. Oh, and the word is, and I believe this for reasons. Illumination's already working on a Zelda movie.
Oh, wow.
So I think it sounds like they are very internally happy with what Illumination.
The response to it has been amazing.
So I would say look forward to a Zelda movie maybe sooner than you think.
Yeah. Going back to the long development cycles of the next 3D Mario and Tears of the Kingdom, 6 years. You're coming up on Naughty Dog development cycles there. Mm-hmm. I mean, Naughty Dog 7 years.
Naughty Dog made Last of Us Part 2 faster than that.
Think about that.
I mean, Tears of the Kingdom better be something special.
That's what I'm saying.
Like through the
better
roof
just tear
special.
the house down. That's all I got to say after all this time.
Yeah, tear the roof down of the kingdom.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, we don't really know a lot about it, really.
No.
Certainly gameplay.
We really don't.
It's like when this thing gets finally blown out in a direct, it better be like, oh my god, no wonder it took them 6 years.
It better blow people away.
But I think most of it is probably just making all this stuff work
on the hardware. I agree with you. I think that's where all the time went. Yep. Okay, let's start going through all these games. And again, we're going to do these chronologically by release date. And then at the end, we'll get to the point where we have games that we're not sure about the release dates, and we'll discuss whether we think they're coming out this year. First up, Fire Emblem Engage comes out January 20th.
Yeah, I think this one's probably going to make it.
So this one's definitely making it. Yeah. Well, again, first we're discussing games with actual release dates. And this one is the 20th, coming up here in a couple weeks. There's been previews that have been published here over the last few days or so. A lot of people are saying it cuts down on a lot of the frivolities of the last Fire Emblem, and it's really just more about like that turn-based combat.
Yeah, it definitely feels more of an old school Fire Emblem.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Me too.
I love the Three Houses approach, the kind of the Persona meets Fire Emblem thing, but also like that's a commitment. Like that's
I don't need it yet.
Yeah, I don't need another one. But I would like to play a nice Fire Emblem strategy game.
Agreed.
Without having to wade through all the social song and dance.
It's been 3 years since Three Houses, which blew my mind because the game was so big. Like, I don't need one yet. I don't need another one.
And because the Muso game recaptured that so well,
it did, yeah.
that I doubly feel like I don't.
You're
need
right,
that
because it had a lot of the same elements in it. Yeah,
it really nailed that.
It did, shockingly. That was actually a really good game.
I still think that's the best Muso game that they've ever made.
It probably.
I think that
is
their best game.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
I like that it's going to be different from Three Houses. If it was Three Houses, I would kind of be dreading playing it. Because I'd be like, I don't know if I'm ready for another 60-some hour.
I'm into this. It's kind of like it feels like more like a pure Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
And I'm into that.
I agree.
This is exactly what I want right now.
I also like the visuals, the art style and stuff better in this.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's more straightforward, more focused on the turn-based battles and strategy. Which obviously Three Houses had, but...
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's not what jumps out at me. When I think of that game, I don't think of the turn-based battles.
No.
I think of all the...
No, I think about the school.
The school stuff.
And all the other weird stuff that was going on there. So again, this comes out on January 20th, just in a couple weeks here. We'll be talking about it on GameFace, and plenty of time for you guys to decide whether you want to buy it or not. Another game that I maybe shouldn't have included, but I did because I feel like it's a Nintendo game, the Tales of Symphonia remaster. That is coming out.
Yeah, this is on everything, right?
It is, yeah. It's not just Nintendo, but because the original was a GameCube exclusive, I decided to slide it in here.
Yeah, this is just the PC version, it seems like.
This is coming out February 17th, so about a month after Fire Emblem. It is going to cost $40. That seems about right to me.
Yeah,
maybe a little cheaper would make sense.
But
yeah, probably 30.
You could probably get the PC version, which is I think the same thing pretty much for 19 or less.
Yep. So yeah, you're right. Maybe the price is a little steep.
But I mean that's Switch ports.
I haven't played this in 20 years.
I played the PC version like during the lockdown, like 2020, and it was still I didn't finish it cuz it's a long game, but like
I played this game when I had just got hired at Tech TV. This was one of the first games I played after I was hired at Tech TV to start working on extended play with you guys. That's how long ago this game came out, and that's how long it's been since I played it. What I remember of it, though, the story is great, and I feel like that will still hold up today. I don't know. No?
It's all right.
Yeah?
It's very drawn out. And
it does. It definitely, it takes a long time. I think I spent almost 70 hours playing this game.
There's a bunch of clumsy stuff where like the younger kid, the kid with the gray hair, like finds like a non-human, like basically they kind of do like a boy in the striped pajamas thing.
No.
Like the kid, he's like there's a non-human prison camp sort of thing, and like you have to go. He's feeding them, and like, no, you shouldn't mess with them. They're there for it's like a really clumsy Holocaust metaphor. That I'm like, I don't know if we needed that in the
Tales of Symphonia,
in the Bandai Namco action RPG, but okay.
This game was way ahead of its time, though, man. As far as action RPGs are concerned.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was I think this was as someone who had already been playing the Tales games, like this was a very natural evolution of what they'd already been doing.
Yeah.
And I think we actually missed one in the U.S. I think one between on the PS1. I think something didn't come here.
I'm not familiar with that.
Because Tales of Destiny and Tales of Destiny 2, they're not the only ones that were in there before this one. But we didn't get a couple of them. Mm-hmm. The Tales series is fascinating because there's a bunch of them that never came here.
Yeah.
And so we would see flashes where, like, suddenly this one came out. You're like, oh, my God, this is such a big jump from Tales of Destiny 2. But it's like, oh, there was another one in there that sort of bridges that. But also, it's terrible and nobody wants it. So it's like, it's a very weird series. It goes back and forth all the time.
In hindsight, it's weird that this was a GameCube exclusive. And in Japan, there was actually a green GameCube released just for this game that now is worth a ton of money if you have one.
I remember that, yeah.
But, yes, still surprising to me 20 years later that this was a GameCube exclusive way back in the day. But anyway, that is selling for $40, maybe a little bit too steep, coming out on February 17th. Next up, Kirby's...
Tales of Eternity.
That came to the U.S.
It did, but I think that was Tales of 2, and then Tales of Destiny, actual Tales of Destiny 2 on the PS2 never came here.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yep, I think you're right. Yeah.
They renamed Tales of Eternity Tales of Destiny 2 here.
Yep.
And the Tales of Fantasia never came here until recently, which I think was on the Switch, where they finally brought that over. Because that was a Super Nintendo. That was a Super Famicom.
Yeah. Yep.
That series has been around forever.
It has. It's made a lot of money for Bandai Namco over the years. Next up, a Wii game being reimagined for Switch, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, is coming out a week after Tales of Symphonia on February 24th. Do you remember this game for the Wii?
Nah.
Yeah. Well, it's Kirby.
So many Kirby games.
Kirby game.
Who can keep track?
I mean, you're right, though. They use it to fill all the holes.
I stopped paying attention after Kirby's Air Ride.
Yeah. Kirby has never been a franchise that I've kept close dibs on, really. I tend to play almost all the games for whatever reason, but I can't say that there's a single Kirby game that's in like my top 50 games of all time.
They're very dependable. They're like a good cheeseburger.
Yeah. They're comfort food games.
You're never going to tell someone about it years later, but like it was what you wanted at the time.
Yep, but again, this is a Wii game that has been reimagined, and it comes to Switch on the 24th. The game is from 2011, so this game's already 11, 12 years old. And the premise of the game is Kirby goes back to the Land of Dreams after, what was the prior Dreamland game?
I would imagine Kirby's Dream Land 2.
Yeah, and that was
like the Game Boy.
Right. It's been a long time. So if you're a Kirby fan, I think this holds some value. I think for most people, though, it's just a calendar filler, a hole in the release calendar to fill up. Next game coming out that we know about on the same day, Octopath Traveler 2 comes out on February 24th. This game is $60, Matt.
Yeah. Although from what I've seen about and know about it, it maybe justifies it because it is gigantic.
They are big. Yeah, they're big
and
games.
It is addressing the thing that my main complaint about the first one, which was that you have 8 different characters with 8 different stories, and those stories never cross over with each other. Like
these
all like they.
It does have the separate stories though.
All the separate stories, but they will incorporate whatever characters you have with you into the story. Mm-hmm. It's no longer this weird separate thing where like the other characters in your party are just sort of incidental.
Yeah.
Like it will take into account who's with you.
Yep.
Which is all I want. That was my main thing with the first one was that you need these stories to be more organic,
integrated into each other. Yeah. And it does still have the 2D, 3D visual style.
I think they call it 2D HD.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Which is weird.
It's an actual term Square uses for this style of art.
Yep. The original came out in 2018.
This, by the way, also is a good example of the epic novel structure.
Yeah.
Like they are trying to come back to that version. These are individual stories, but they are not serialized. They are. It feels much more like a giant novel that jumps perspective over the course.
But there are 8 separate stories in this one as well, and as Matt pointed out, they are trying to make sure that the stories integrate and overlap with each other better than they did the last time. So
if they pull that off, they're gonna please me greatly.
$60 too much for me.
Not for me.
I mean,
I'll go in for that.
Really?
I mean, isn't that how much Triangle Strategy was? Too?
Yeah, also overpriced, in my opinion.
I mean, Square overprices these things in general, but in terms of this, at least this is something that no one else is doing.
That's true. Yeah. Next up, another game that kind of caught me by surprise towards the end of the year last year, and that is Bayonetta Origins. It is a prequel to the Bayonetta franchise, but it's kind of this indie-ish, top-down action-adventure with, like, pastel visuals.
It's this weird attempt to try to, like, branch the IP out so you can do
so it's
simpler,
not just about
cheaper, faster
TNA
games.
and games that take 6 years to make.
Yeah, so you don't have to make a giant character action game every time you want to use the Bayonetta license.
I think this game is going to tank hard.
It does seem to be who asked for this in a lot of ways.
Yeah, as you like to say, a solution in search of a problem. It was announced and really just...
It does have a little bit of an Okami vibe
absolutely.
to it that I kind of dig, but like I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I may play it and really like it. I just think most people are just going to completely forget about it and not care that it even comes out.
I think it's hard to tell what you're looking at.
It is.
Even if you are a Bayonetta fan. You never
think this is a Bayonetta game. No. Ever. Like, it doesn't look like her either, other than when they show the close-up of her there. But, like, the top-down view, she's so small, you can't even tell what it's supposed to be. So, yeah, I don't have high hopes for this. And again, it is kind of an indie spin-off thing. It's not like a big, typical Bayonetta release. And after we've seen the sales of the last couple Bayonetta games for the big releases, which haven't been stellar, I struggle to think that game is going to do much or have much traction. That is coming out on March 17th. So basically a month after Octopath Traveler 2 and Kirby. And then the next jump is to May 12th, Matt, which is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So think about all the games we just talked about. Those games are supposed to get you to May on Switch. Not a great
imagine there's
lineup.
a couple of things we don't know about for April yet.
Maybe.
Actually, on Switch, I mean, probably maybe some third-party stuff and a whole bunch of mobile ports. But Nintendo-made stuff doesn't seem like it.
No, it sure doesn't.
You never know. Like, Nintendo's weird that, there might be a Direct in February. It's like, oh, by the way, in April we're dropping a new, I don't know.
Kirby game.
That's where Pikmin 4 goes. I was going to say Kirby game, but like...
Yeah, they'll have another Kirby game to fill the void. I mean, what is there really to say about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at this point? Like, as Matt said earlier, we don't have a lot of information.
Resistance is futile.
Yeah, we're all going to buy it. We're all going to play it.
We cannot get out. It is coming.
Hopefully, we're all going to like it. We'll see how it goes. This game has been in development for 6 freaking years.
I look forward to the 6 months where you're not allowed to criticize it.
Right.
And then everybody realizes somewhere around November that, like,
we were right.
Oh no, there are some problems here, but I don't care about them. And then a year later, I was like, I actually didn't like that very much. And then, like, it'll turn around again.
I look forward to us legitimately criticizing it for things that should be criticized for, and then watching the subscriber numbers on YouTube fall for the next 2 weeks.
It took 2 years before you could say negative things about Breath of the Wild and not instantly get, like, tarred and feathered.
Yeah, and I mean, we were critical of it right out of the gate, so we were never like fawning over it.
I mean, I've always said, like, Breath of the Wild is a great proof of concept for a Zelda overworld, and I can't wait for them to make a real game out of it.
Yeah. We'll see if that's what happens here with Tears of the Kingdom, but we don't really need to talk about this. You guys are all going to buy it, regardless of what we say about it, and we're all going to play it.
This is the most bulletproof release of the year.
And we'll all get together, and we'll talk about whether we actually liked it or not, but we're all going to buy it, and we're all going to play it. And that, Matt, is it for games that actually have release dates for Switch. So what you said earlier when we first started discussing this about how, this is like the last year for big Switch games, it kind of adds up. So there are 3 games that are announced right now for Switch that do not have release dates, and we're going to discuss whether we think they're coming out or not. First up, Advanced Wars Reboot Camp 1+2. Reworks of the first 2 Advanced Wars for Switch. The game was supposed to come out last year 2 different times. It was delayed 2 different times because of the war in Ukraine going on right now. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. when do you think Nintendo gets over this and releases it?
I don't know.
It should have already, in my opinion, it should have already.
Yeah, no
I think even if you talk to someone who's fighting in Ukraine.
I think Zelensky needs to call Nintendo and be like, hey, we're cool with
it's
it.
Okay.
Just put it out. It's fine.
There's been like
Believe me, we have bigger things to worry about right now.
There's been like 400 other war games that have come out in that time.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I respect Nintendo for what it's doing, what it did with this, but now it's kind of become ridiculous.
Associate that with
Put it out. Like, when you're talking about, like, there's a direct in April, and
maybe like
this is the game. I think
like, the one nation is very clearly Russia in this.
It is,
like,
yeah.
Maybe they need to change some imagery or something.
And maybe that's what they're doing.
Might be, or like at least change the translation so they're not like mixing in like da with things, or something, like Russian lingo. Because I'm sure it sounds like that. It sounds like something localizers would do.
Yeah,
it's just like sort of make them speak like stereotypical Russians.
If you haven't played these games, they're amazing. They're amazing turn-based strategy games.
Especially the second one.
Like, I highly recommend both of them are great. Like, honestly. But, so I highly recommend this. When Nintendo finally decides to release it, sure. I can tell you already, go buy it. But when do you think this will happen this year, if at all?
I don't know.
It feels like if it hasn't released it by now, it may never.
Yeah, I could see this just vanishing forever.
That's crazy. But, and on some level, I respect what Nintendo's doing. On other levels, it's asinine. So... We'll see.
It's very silly.
We'll see if it makes it out or not this year. Next up, Pikmin 4. Very short teaser trailer we have of this so far. Not a ton of information about how it's different from other Pikmin games. Does that matter? It's been so long since Pikmin 3 that...
I think this will make it.
This year?
Yeah. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this was April.
Really?
I feel like Miyamoto wants this out in spring. This is a spring
It makes
game.
sense. And everyone's doing gardening and everything.
Gardening, all the flowers are blooming. I think you want to release this in April.
I could see that. I could absolutely see that.
I will not be surprised if we get a direct like this month or next month that's suddenly like Pikmin 4, here's a big thing coming out April 22nd or whatever.
Yeah. This would be a good game for 420.
Yeah. Because this is not going to interfere with Zelda.
Yeah, not at all. I think 80% sure this comes out this year.
Yeah.
We've also been told heard
10 years
that it's been done for like 2 years. So
for a long time.
I think it's very safe to say that this game makes it
I think Miyamoto intimated it was done on the Wii U.
Yes. Yeah. It's been done for a while. So should be good to go on that one. Next up, a game I think we're not good to go on. Metroid Prime 4.
No, this is...
You don't think this year at all?
No. I think this is next system.
Launch game.
Yeah. I think we might see the Metroid Prime 1
remakes, whatever they do with them.
I think that would be probably this year.
Metroid Prime, I agree. I think I think it will release for Switch. I think it'll be a dual system release, kind of how Zelda was.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think you'll get Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom Deluxe, and Metroid Prime 4 for the launch of Nintendo's next console. Mm-hmm. And that will be an amazing launch lineup.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I'm still amazed that the Prime remaster didn't make it for the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, hard to believe. But again, after you see the sales of Metroid games, it's not that hard to believe, though.
Except the last Metroid game sold the best of the entire franchise, and Metroid Prime was the top seller in the franchise before that. So if there's any game you would re-release, it's Metroid Prime 1.
Yeah, there's some momentum, for sure. So what percentage would you say of Metroid Prime 4 coming this year?
0.
0?
I'd
give
a
it
chance.
10%. Because they do still have to have something big for Q4.
Yeah, but it ain't that.
Yeah.
And that's
I wonder what it'll be.
And that's not big.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Technically, you're right.
That's, that's a 2 million seller if you're lucky.
Yeah, you're right.
I think they have Mario.
I mean, it's due.
Yeah.
That could be the one that they show at E3, and then it comes out in the holiday.
Oh, no, it's a new Pokemon.
3 in like 18 months.
Yeah, it would be the another Legends.
That would be a huge mistake.
Or a Let's Go Gold Silver.
Yep. And then finally, the game that Pachter thinks will be the launch game for the next console, Mario Kart 9.
Yeah, I guess that would track.
Imagine that launch lineup, though. Zelda Deluxe, Metroid Prime 4, and Mario Kart 9 for the launch of Nintendo's next hardware.
Yeah.
Kaboom. Kaboom.
That's a little something for everyone.
Yeah, it'd be gigantic. Like, maybe the best Nintendo launch lineup ever, if that would actually happen.
I don't know. It's hard to beat the GameCube for me.
Yeah.
That was a lot of good stuff, and it had Rogue Leader.
Yeah. First Party was.
You want to make me real happy? Put that Rogue Squadron trilogy remake that never came out for Wii.
Oh yeah.
That was literally finished. They finished that. They remade all 3 Rogue Leaders, and they just didn't put them out.
Yeah. Yeah. This B-roll, by the way, is from the Wii U version of Mario Kart 8. That's how old this B-roll is. This is some of the first ever B-roll that I processed for GameFace.
Oh yeah, you can kind of see the jaggies around Boo.
Yep.
There.
Back when the site and GameFace launched, this was one of the first games we covered, and this is some of the very first B-roll ever for GameFace that you're watching here right now. So that just shows you how long it's been since there was a new Mario Kart game. Like, it's really nuts that is the case.
They
but
certainly haven't needed it.
They haven't. And other than that, that's it for Nintendo. That's all we know for 2023. That's awful. Let's be honest.
I mean, all they need is Zelda.
That's true.
That
To
first
carry
half of the
this year, because they'll sell 25 million.
Clearly,
I mean, with the install base now, how many will they sell of Tears of the Kingdom?
Lots.
Like 30 million?
Maybe, well, I don't know. Well, see, that would buck a trend because traditionally, every other time they've released a second Zelda on a system, it has sold half of what the first did.
That's true.
Every time.
That's true. Yeah. But they've also been lesser games.
Doesn't even matter if they're sequels.
Yeah.
It's been half.
But they have been lesser games, I would argue.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people disagree with you on Majora's Mask. I wouldn't.
I think some people would disagree.
The hardcore fans think Majora's Mask is like the greatest.
It's better than Ocarina of Time?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
A lot of people think it's the best Zelda, period.
Ooh. I would definitely not agree with that.
It was the first Zelda I didn't like very much.
Yeah, I know.
Frankly.
Me too. I struggled to finish
I don't like timers, and I don't like doing things over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's all
That's
that
all
game
it is. That's the whole game. Yeah. The story also I didn't think was very good. So
no, but otherwise, like, yeah, I mean, there was no second GameCube Zelda.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or was there?
Yeah.
Oh, the Twilight Princess, technically. Yeah. But that was a
Wind
launch.
Waker and Twilight Princess.
The Twilight Princess launched on Wii, and that was the big seller there. And then Skyward Sword sold half of that.
Yep. Because it was worse.
It was.
It was a worse game. Yeah. Vincent saying the current rumor is that there's a 2D Mario coming out alongside it. Alongside the Mario movie. Yeah.
And that is in April.
Yeah.
So
well, that aligns with what you were saying too.
That might be what's in.
I mean, we are kind of due for a 2D Mario as well.
Yeah.
Because Mario Maker, I don't think they're making another one of those.
No, I think Mario Maker did what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah.
Well done. Good.
Yeah. It did amazing.
And it's been long enough since 3D World and Bowser's Fury that team would probably have enough time to make something there.
Yeah. But otherwise, that's it for Nintendo. Looking a little lean for 2023. Plenty of time for them to do directs and announce stuff that we don't know about at this point.
See, there you go. Justin Horman, Majora's Mask is his favorite, followed by Zelda 2 on the NES. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you judge me, Ricky Bobby.
It takes different strokes to move the world. Yes, it does. So we'll see. I think Nintendo will have a lot of announcements this year in its various directs that it has.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a barren last 6 months of the year. I can guarantee you that. There will be games to play. We just don't know what they are yet. And it's a little surprising to not know more than we do right now beyond May. So lots of work for Nintendo to do.
But it's not surprising because they always do that. Nintendo always doesn't say anything about the second half of the year.
Well, I guess I feel like a lot of the games that we were just talking about, we were also talking about them last year.
True.
And they didn't come out. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, when you don't know when Zelda's coming out, it always feels like you know more about the second half of the year.
That's true. Yep. There you go. So that's Nintendo for 2023. Next week, we'll be back for PC, Xbox, and maybe third party. We may push third party to the next episode. We'll see how it goes. But we will continue previewing 2023 for all y'all. Next up, we're going to talk about really the only game that came out since we left you guys that has made waves, has people talking, and that game is called High on Life. Matt, did you play this?
No.
I'm surprised you didn't play it, actually.
You shouldn't be, because I hate this humor.
Oh, you do?
I do not.
So you don't like Rick and Morty?
I like Rick and Morty fine. I just don't think it's anywhere close as smart or good or funny as the people who make it their whole personality do.
Agree 1,000,000%.
And like I find
totally agree.
I can tolerate. I think it has a lot of interesting ideas sometimes, and like it has some really good moments in places, which are usually not very fun. Not the funny moments, but like. To me, Rick and Morty is sort of like BoJack Horseman for people who can't be honest with themselves. And this just seems like they took the humor from Rick and Morty and removed all the gravitas from it.
Uh-huh.
And just the clips and the trailers and stuff I saw from this, like, it's cringe. It makes me cringe. There's no other word for it. It makes me cringe. It makes me want to hide behind my sofa. I don't want to play this game.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I've been playing this the last week or whatever, and my wife has remarked about it like 6 times.
Wow.
Like,
I'm sure.
That's too much.
Yeah.
Because it is just too much. They're literally so first of all, the game is a first-person shooter created by the studio, co-founded by the Rick and Morty guy. What's his name? Justin Roiland.
Mm-hmm.
And it is Rick and Morty, the first-person shooter. It is like a cartoonish, and I'll just get the B-roll going so you guys can see it with your own eyes.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that the gun is literally him doing Morty's voice, basically.
It is him. Yeah, he voices the gun. So it is and this is, by the way, this isn't the game. This is like how you start the game. Mm-hmm. And the plot of the game is you're a teenage boy and you're playing this video game at home. And all of a sudden there's an alien invasion. You get pulled away from your computer monitor by your sister. And your parents are away on vacation and the kids are taking care of the house. Your sister has has cocaine, and she asks you to do cocaine with her. And it's funny, like, you choose your character model based upon your reflection in the cocaine mirror. Which I guess some people might consider that clever, some people may not. And what happens is, as soon as you come out of this game and you're talking to your sister, Earth is invaded by aliens. And your house, in a nod to The Wizard of Oz, gets picked up and transported to this alien planet. And you get to this alien planet and you discover that the aliens are learning to turn humans into drugs that they can smoke. So basically, they're turning human beings into weed. And it's your job to stop it and save humanity and ultimately save planet Earth. Now, to what Matt was talking about earlier, you have guns. And the guns talk. The guns literally have a face on the back of them that's always looking at you, and it's animated. So everything that the gun says, there's actual facial animation of the gun saying things. Eventually, you get a knife named a Knifey, and it also talks, and it is the worst.
Yeah.
Like, my wife was okay with the gun, and then you get Knifey, and Knifey is just, ugh. And they never stop talking. Nothing in this game ever stops talking. Your guns never stop talking. The NPCs walking around never stop talking. You get in these conversations with NPCs in the game, and they talk forever. Like, there's no way to skip through it like there is in most games. You just have to sit there and listen to them go on and on. And to your point, Matt, the writing is not up to scratch if you're comparing it to, like, the TV show Rick and Morty. It has moments. Like, I've chuckled at the game a few times.
The only joke I saw that I liked was this. There was a clip, I think, on Twitter, and he was running towards something, and he's like, and he presses pause for something, and it comes back, and the gun's like, "Well, you just pause it. What are you doing? Like, why would you press pause? That doesn't help us." It's not,
it breaks the fourth wall a lot. So absolutely,
which is pretty. It's kind of funny, but it's also like, you're not going to take me through a 10-hour game doing that.
Right. And that is really the problem with this game, is that the first few hours are pretty awesome, and then it runs out of steam real fast because the humor just wears on you. It's not funny after a while.
You know what I'd love to see is the reaction of someone playing this who has never seen Rick and Morty. Because if you're not already saturated by this bullshit humor, there's a point. I would be very interested to see what you think about, like, because it is not really like what anything else does. Mm-hmm. Like, if you've seen Rick and Morty, you've seen all this already.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, you're like, what in the world is going on here? Like, it gets away with a lot of stuff you can only get away with in animation.
I mean, there's some writing in this. Again, like, I'm hardened. I have really thick skin. And my wife, again, 5 different times was like, turn that down. Like, that's out of control. Like, that's too much. Like, the stuff that the guns say, it pushes the boundaries. This is a hard M, this game. Like, it's not even just the dialogue. It's what you're doing a lot of the time. It definitely
is weird because, to me, the gun looks like the ant from A Bug's Life.
Yeah.
So it's like Flick is being really, like, obscene all the time. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely earned its M rating. And again, my wife, she's not like...
She's not a prude.
No, she's seen some stuff and been through some stuff, and definitely like offended her multiple times. I had to play this with the headphones on while she was around. Like, she got sick of it. She's like, I don't want to hear that anymore, because they never shut up. Like, there's times where you have like 4 people talking at once, and they're all lapping over top of each other.
So for her, was it how the constant talking, or was it actually the content?
The content of the talking. Yeah, it was what they were saying. Because, I mean, they drop the F-bomb like every other word in this, and it's just gratuitous. And, like, it does work, like, in the show better than it works here, because you have to make it last in this for, like, 15 hours.
And you can, in the show, they can't drop the F-bomb.
Right.
They have to work within a framework.
Prudent. Yeah. In this, they're just allowed, their worst impulses are imagined in this game.
Yeah, structure is important.
Yes.
When it comes to, like, limitations on creativity. That was, as soon as you remove if you remove all limitations and we can't do this and the technology doesn't exist to do this yet stuff, you get the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, actually. And you're watching this, you may think, oh, it's a first-person shooter. And it is, but it's really like a cross between a 3D platformer and a first-person shooter. Platforming becomes a big thing later on in the game. You get like a grapple hook. Every weapon has an alt-fire. Like, this weapon is just your pistol, and its alt-fire is basically a grenade that you can shoot. But other ones, like, you get this disc launcher later on. You can use that to actually embed platforms into the walls that you can then jump up. You get a grapple hook that you can use to traverse, and you end up swinging like Tarzan through some sections of the game. And then you also use it just to reach high platforms and whatnot. So platforming becomes a big part of this, but it's also like a 3D platformer in other ways, and just the way the game is designed, for example. So basically what happens is you land on this alien planet where you are now, and, well, actually, I don't think you've actually been transported there yet. But you end up trying to find this bounty hunter. Well, it turns out the bounty hunter is like down on his luck, and he's like, I don't want to do it anymore. I need you to go out and kill these bounties for me. And what happens is the alien bounty hunter sits on your couch with your sister, and there's jokes that are implied there. But there's a little warp thing that appears in the living room, and you just go to the warp thing and you select like your next assassination target. And those levels are very much like 3D platformer levels. Like, here's the Old West, here's the desert, here's the snow level, and it's very sort of formulaic in that way. Here's the hub world when you first go to the alien planet for the first time. There's a vendor here where you can buy stuff that upgrades not just your guns but also your suit. So when you first land here, you get a suit. You're kind of like Samus, and you do the whole like.
Yeah, the bounty hunter thing actually reminded me of back when Retro wanted to do bounty hunting to make an open world in Metroid Prime 3, and Nintendo said no because Samus would never do that, and it turned out that Nintendo didn't know what a bounty hunter was.
Right.
And so they've been calling Samus a bounty hunter for like 20 years, and they didn't actually know what that meant.
This game does play on other franchises, the biggest of which is Metroid. And it is a Metroidvania. Like, you get new abilities, you can go back into the old worlds, like you get this one ability that can stop fan blades. Like, when you're first playing through levels, you find these fan blades with things locked behind them. You're like, how do I get in there? You can't. Well, eventually you get the thing that stops the fan blades, you go back into those. It's Metroid for all intents and purposes. Now, the funny thing is you get your suit, but you don't have the encryption key for the suit. You have to go and buy it at the store. So while you're walking to the store, you're using the free version of the suit, so you get all the pop-ups that pop up in front of your vision. Like, there's some clever stuff in this game, to be sure, and it does break the fourth wall a lot. There's all kinds of nods to all these other video game franchises. Again, Metroid's one of the big ones. And if you're really into games like we are, there are moments where you'll chuckle, you'll be like, oh, that's kind of clever, but it doesn't dissipate the harsh language, the really crude jokes that just aren't funny. Like, I don't know. It feels in a lot of ways like a 12-year-old wrote a lot of the script for this game, and that's kind of Rick and Morty too, though. But Rick and Morty is smart at knowing when to keep pounding the same joke or when to just sort of do the one-off thing. And
a lot of times, one of the things I appreciate about Rick and Morty is a lot of times, even if you don't realize it, the stories are drawing from classic sci-fi and quantum physics. Like, there's a lot of the research is done to it's like they're reading these scientific things or these old pulp sci-fi things and thinking, what can we do and how can we spin this to make it, a Rick and Morty thing.
Yeah. And
I appreciate kind of that creativity. I haven't played this, so I don't know one way or the other, but I don't see that in this.
Yeah.
I don't. Also because, look, as much as I love Metroid, it's not that fertile for that. Metroid doesn't do enough variety of things to really sustain a whole game of parody of it.
Yep.
Obviously, they're doing other things here, and there's a lot of Rick and Morty to it in general, but, like, I don't know. I definitely did not get the impression from the footage of this I've seen that this was written by the same people that write the best Rick and Morty episodes.
Probably not. I know that he was heavily involved in the game.
Yeah,
though,
I mean,
Justin
you can definitely
Hoyland.
tell that. And I'm sure I think it sounds like a lot of the gun stuff might have been just him.
He
riffing.
voices that gun.
Yeah.
Your pistol, does the voice for it.
Yeah, and I'm sure he does other ones too, but it seems to be his main. Because it's just Morty. He's just doing Morty's voice.
It is Morty's voice.
Oh,
yeah.
I've seen that part where he's like, "Oh, we just killed a kid. We can kill kids in this game." Apparently,
I mean the script does that all the time because it does make you do stuff that you're like, "Oh, wait, was I supposed to do that?" And then the game will affirm that yes. Yeah. That's, in fact, what you were supposed to do.
Which ends up, my question on that ends up being like, so is there a payoff to that? To the fact that it keeps breaking the fourth wall? Is there a reason for that? Is that going somewhere? Or is that just...
There's no major revelation where
joke.
You ultimately, like, they pan out and you're in, like, a fishbowl type thing or anything like that. No.
Yeah, because, like, otherwise that's just, like... To me, that's just sort of kind of lazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a good way you could describe this game,
you
really.
couldn't come up with a better joke for that, so you just decided
There's a lot
to
of
break
lazy stuff in this game, honestly.
Like, breaking the fourth wall is not really a particularly novel thing anymore.
No.
In anything.
Anything.
I mean, that's half the premise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now because of the multiverse stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was everything everywhere all at once did that half of the time, but that was also part of the point. It was thematically relevant to what it was trying to say.
Yep.
I have a hard time believing this game has anything to say.
Yep.
And if I'm going to put up with kind of the constant talking and that kind of humor, you better have something to say. And I do think Rick and Morty often does have something to say. One may not find it worthwhile compared to what you sit through otherwise, but like at least there's something there. They're trying to do something.
Yeah.
I don't get that impression from this.
One thing I did really like, though, about the game is the weapons. There aren't many. I think there's like 5 total, but each one of them...
I prefer that at this point. Like, I'd rather you design some weapons that really work and have good, integration with the world and make them interesting rather than like load me down with 4,000 guns. Like,
yeah.
I think the opposite of the Borderlands approach has proven to be the better idea.
I'd agree with that, actually. Or maybe somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. But there's like 5 weapons. Each one of them has like an alt fire, and the alt fire is like extremely functional. Like I said earlier, there's a shotgun that fires discs, and you can fire those discs into the walls, and that creates platforms for you to climb up. There was the alt fire on one of them stops the fan blades, as I talked about earlier. Melee feels terrible in the game, though. It feels completely disconnected. In fact, Matt, the gunplay in this also feels terrible. You've probably been seeing from the footage, like...
It doesn't look great.
There are headshots all over the place. None of them feel good. There's just not that satisfying feedback and with the timing and the DualSense control. It's not there. It feels... Again, a lot like the Melee, like you're disconnected from the guns. Like you don't feel the impact of firing the guns, at least the way that I would like to feel it. And then eventually you get, like, you can go to the pawn shop and buy extra moves. Like the first one you learn is like a dash, so you can't double jump, but you can jump and then you can dash. And again, the levels are all built so that as you learn an ability, if you go back to one of the prior levels you played, you'll find a place in those levels where now that you can do the jump and the dash, you can reach a new area. However, one thing I would say is that going back and doing kind of the Metroidvania stuff is that you it's not worth it. Like, you end up mostly just getting currency that you can then go and spend in the pawn shop for upgrades and things like that, but the amount of money that you get for going all the way back to an old level, trying to remember the one spot in the level where that thing was where you could use this new ability, and then using it, and then you end up opening up a chest that gives you like 1,000 credits or whatever. Like, I've rarely found it worth it to go back and kind of use the new abilities on the old levels to open up new parts of the stage. As I mentioned, like, most of the levels are like 3D platformer levels. They all have like a theme, and you teleport to them. They're not like a part of a big open world. There's like a teleport machine in your living room, in your house, that was plopped down on that alien planet, and you just go and put your hand up, and it'll say, okay, choose which bounty you want to tackle next. You choose the bounty, and you literally warp to the new world. And again, the worlds are kind of like 3D platformers, where it's like the beach world, the snow world, the old west world, that kind of stuff. What else is there to say? I had some bugs with the game. Like, I got to this one part where the game, like, said it was loading, and then it just froze for like 30 seconds, and then it just started again. I had the game crash. I've had a lot of, particularly in the second half of the game, a lot of it just turns into like arenas where, okay, here you are, kill all these guys. Once you kill the last one, the door opens and you go on to the next area where you get into the next arena battle. But the problem was, like, that I found is a couple different instances, the enemies would get stuck on geometry, or they wouldn't even spawn like out where you could shoot them, and they'd be stuck behind like a building that you can't even like shoot through, and you just have to reset the game. So a lot of the flags that the game has to say, okay, you've killed all the enemies, now it's time to move on. In some cases, those flags did not work, or the enemies just wouldn't spawn at a place where you could actually kill the enemy to move on. I ended up having to like reset the game a couple different times. But I would say overall, I was pleasantly surprised by the production values in this game, because it's built by this little studio that he founded. It's an indie studio. I'm sure he wasn't able to get high-priced talent, and he wasn't poaching people from Naughty Dog and Insomniac to make this game, but technically, it's pretty impressive. It looks pretty good. It runs real good. My biggest issue with issues are how gross it is, how the voice acting and the script in the game is offensive and not in a good way, and that I felt disconnected from the guns. And repetition, too. There aren't enough enemy types in this game. You fight like the same ants over and over again. You fight like the same alien agents over and over again. It could definitely use with more enemy variety. And I would say, too, 5 guns, 15 hours, probably not quite enough. So I would like to see a few more weapons. But I'll say this. If you're a fan of Rick and Morty, I think most people will like it, at least, if they're fans of the show. I think they'll be maybe a little disappointed in it, maybe more disappointed than a lot of other people who don't know the show as well, because the show is funny, legitimately funny, and I laugh at it every time I watch it. I only chuckled a few times playing this game, and the game's like 15 hours long. Now, here's the thing. It's free on Game Pass. It is a Game Pass game right now. So if you are a subscriber, you can go and play it. It is the most popular game in the history of Game Pass, Matt.
Well,
what do you think about that?
I think there are a lot of Rick and Morty fans.
I'm surprised, because to me, it's definitely not the best game on Game Pass, but it is.
Popular doesn't mean best.
No, you're right.
Avatar 2.
It does provide mindless fun, though, and for at least a few hours, which for Game Pass, that's fine. Like, if you're not paying for the game, and I'll say this, if you pay for this game, it's $60. Hell to the no. Hell no. I would pay $30 for this game. Good. $30, I would recommend it. Anything more than that is insane. $60 is insane for this game. Like, there should have been a joke about that in the game. Like, about how they're trying to, like, squeeze their fans for as much money as they possibly can. This is an indie game. Single player. There's nothing else to it. Once you finish it, would you play it again? Maybe. If you're a completionist and you wanted to find all the chests, so you would use the Metroid stuff and go back and, unlock all the chests in the prior levels that you'd already played through, maybe. But, like, the boss fights, like, the first boss fight in this is so annoying. Like, you have to use the grapple hook extensively in the boss fight, and it's so janky to use. Like, I eventually figured out, like, how it worked, and, like, I beat the boss the first time after I figured it out, but it was just annoying trying to figure it out the first time. And I kind of found that a lot of times with this game. Like, it was frustrating to me. There's waypoints. Like, you can hit up and it will scan. But a lot of times in a level, there's like 4 different waypoints, and it's not telling you which one. And then there's some points where, like, the game says, clear all the enemies out of this area. And you can't find the area. And you hit, like, the waypoint, and it'll point out, like, 4 different areas. You go to them, you never find the area. Because what's happened is the enemies that are supposed to be there have not spawned. So there's no way this game is worth $60. I can't believe they try to charge it. But, again, it is free on Game Pass. So if you have it, play it. My guess is, like me and like most people, you'll get 4 or 5 hours into it. You're like, okay, I get it. I'm good. Or you'll get the 5th weapon. You'll be able to fiddle around with the 5th weapon for 45 minutes or so. And you'll be like, okay, now I get it. Time to move on. But I have to admit, I'm pretty shocked that this is the most popular Game Pass game ever.
I mean, I can certainly see it being the game that everyone agrees they don't want to pay for.
Yeah, but like Outriders. I'm surprised it was more popular than Outriders. a cooperative game that you would think would get people involved playing with each other and they get sucked up in the game as a service loop and blah, blah, blah. But no, this is more popular than Outriders was. So, I don't know. I know one thing. I would not recommend buying this game at full price. And you can. Like, you can go on Steam right now and pay for it if you want to. And actually, it's selling like wildfire on Steam.
Yeah, it was high up on that list.
Yeah. People really like this guy.
Yeah.
I think is the conclusion I've come to. They think he's a genius. And in some ways, maybe he is. But I think his talents shine better in a 20-minute cut down of a TV show than a game where he can just let his freak flag fly without any concerns for brevity. Mm-hmm. I guess is the best way I could put it. Like, he just let it all hang out here instead of cutting everything to the bone like you do with a TV show. Like, you've cut episodes of TV shows, and you're in there, and you have to get it to 22:30 or whatever, and you're like at 23:45, and you're shaving like seconds off. You're like, okay, I can tighten this joke up, and it still lands just as good. You don't need that extra 2 beats afterwards or whatever. Like, that didn't happen with this game. They left the 2 beats in the game. And I think over time it starts to add up and it starts to wear on you a little bit. So I enjoyed my time with it at first. The more I played it, the less I liked it, I guess is the best way I could put it. But if you're a Metroidvania fan, not a whole lot out there right now to really play. So I think if you're into that genre, this isn't a great representation of it because in Metroid, you go back, you find something important, like extra rockets or something that changes your next boss fight. You're like, oh my god, now I have 5 rockets instead of 2, and now I can beat this guy. There's none of that really in this. Like, there's no sense of like, oh, it was worth it to go back and get this stuff because now I have enough money to go to the pawn shop and buy something I didn't before. I always have more than enough money in this game to buy anything that I wanted. So, again, it is a Metroidvania, not the best example of the genre, but most importantly, it's free if you have Game Pass. So in that way, I would probably recommend giving it a go. And Matt, I would even say for you maybe to give it a go because it's not just a first-person shooter. It really does feel more like a mashup of platformer and shooter. But there you go. That's High on Life. And it's been surprising to me to see how popular. The reviews for this, by the way, are all over the map. Like, some publications gave it a 4. IGN gave it an 8. Like, they're just all over the place.
Seems to really depend on whether the reviewer is a Rick and Morty fan.
A huge Rick and Morty fan, yeah. And I'm not gigantic. Like, I like the show, and I've watched it a lot. But I'm not big enough a fan to forgive the shortcomings, like maybe some like super fans might be. So, and that's the thing editorially. Do you give the review to the guy who really loves Rick and Morty, or do you give it to somebody like us who respects it and likes it and laughs at it, but recognizes that it has its flaws as well? I think that might be the better tactic to get a more accurate review.
But there's also, much like the Elden Ring reviewer choice thing, it's sort of like, well, how many death threats do we want this week?
I don't know if you get that over Rick and Morty, but...
Oh, you do.
Really?
Oh, yeah. These people are crazy.
Wow. That surprises me.
Remember when they were like getting on McDonald's counters and kicking people because they were out of Szechuan sauce and shit?
That's right.
Like, that fan base is out of control.
I forgot about that, the whole Szechuan sauce thing. That's hilarious. That's fucking funny.
And to be fair, Roiland, like, you know, it's like, that's gross, and I didn't think that was what was going to happen. Like, he's like, none of that was, he's like, it was a throwaway joke. It was not supposed to be a cultural movement. Like, that's not a thing. Like, he's clearly been caught off guard by the more toxic elements of the fandom. Much like every fandom at this point. There's a lot of, you know, there's
just kind of the way it is.
Just try being a Star Wars fan right now. It's very difficult.
I just act like I'm not, even though I'm a gigantic Star Wars fan. Commander Fett says, I tried this game and I had to stop because the camera shook so much I got motion sickness. I'm glad you brought that up. That is another glitch in the game. For whatever reason, at different points in the game, the whole world would just start shaking up and down. There was a little bit of it in the B-roll, like when the ship comes down in their neighborhood and she walks and you walk up to the car, you can see the world starts going like this. It happens like weirdly out of nowhere at different points in the game. I couldn't figure out what you needed to do to trigger it, but it does happen. Good point, Commander Fett. That was an issue. It didn't make me motion sick, but it was weird. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what? But again, it shows you that it was built by what most would consider an indie development team with not a big budget. But I think they did a pretty good job overall with the resources that they had. Vincent says, a clarification, it's the biggest third-party game and biggest of 2022. Okay. So that means Halo Infinite beat it, I guess.
Probably.
But I doubt Pentiment did.
No.
Or anything else. Probably only Halo Infinite. I mean, what else has there been? First party. That's it.
Forza Horizon 5.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Forza beat it, definitely. Had to have. But yeah, otherwise, somehow this game ended up becoming a big thing. I don't think it's worth that, I guess is what I would finish on. But at the same time, I was kind of pleasantly surprised that it's better than I thought it would be from a technical perspective. Even though there are some glitches and some bugs, it's still pretty clean code, which I did not expect. So there you go. That is High on Life. Next up, we're going to talk about Sony at CES. CES used to be a much bigger deal for video games. In fact, E3 came from CES. It used to be just a section of CES, and eventually they were like, wait a minute, all the people at CES are hanging out in our little area. Maybe we should just break out and do our own thing, and E3 was born. Now, since then, games have had like an ebb and flow at CES. There was always years where like we would go because the publishers would be like, you should go. And they wouldn't tell you why you should go, and then you'd go and you'd find out why, because they announced something big and blah, blah, blah. But they would always clue you in. The last few years, really the only gaming presence at CES has been Sony. And even for Sony, its presence is limited. So Sony Computer Entertainment generally has like a 5-minute section inside the general Sony presentation or press conference that it has every year. Because Sony does all this other stuff. And CES is a chance for it to show off its TVs and all the other electronics that it makes, blah, blah, blah. And that is what happened again. So this year, once again, PlayStation had literally a 5-minute section inside the overall Sony press conference to talk about PlayStation. And it made some pretty big announcements in the amount of time that it was up there. I guess the first thing I would say is that they announced that there have been 30 million PlayStation 5 sold worldwide. Does that number surprise you one way or the other, Matt?
Not really.
A little smaller than I thought, actually.
Not really.
No?
It surprises me they even got that many units out the door.
I mean, it is weird when you figure...
I would think it was small if they were plentiful, but they are not.
When you consider that you've never seen a PlayStation 5 in the wild, and they sold 30 million, that's pretty impressive that they've managed to do that. But still...
I might not have guessed they managed to get that many made, frankly. Just
the
considering how hard it was to...
And the supply chain, getting them out to people, totally get it. So it has sold 30 million worldwide. Now, the big focus...
I like... When you said that alongside the B-roll, it really... My brain wanted to read that as they've sold more than 30 games.
Oh, they've definitely sold more than that.
30 games, good.
Vincent says, I remember the year where Sony revealed the PS5 logo at CES. Yeah, and
every once in a while.
Didn't it debut PlayStation VR 2 last year?
Yeah.
At CES?
Yeah.
So
and I want to say they showed the prototype for the first time at GDC, but I think they announced Xbox as a thing at CES.
Yeah, I think you may be right.
I remember back in the early 2000s, like that was Tech TV used to do a big even some live hits from.
Well, it was E3 for
CES,
tech. Which was very
unusual then. Like that was a very people who went through the CES gauntlet at Tech TV were like bonded in a way that like war veterans were bonded. It was their
E3 absolutely for tech, and it still is.
And it was just like now you think about it and you're just like, man, 9 hours of live TV all about technology, as we said, and it was just like. That's a lot of airtime dedicated to digital cameras,
to TVs and digital cameras, and I
did see that. You see the thing this one where it's a flat screen TV that doesn't need a mounting bracket because it has like a suction attachment thing on the back.
I didn't see that.
And you basically tell it you're putting it on a wall, and it detects the surface of the wall and attaches itself to the wall. And then if you want it off, you can just take it off. The only downside is if you're not running it with a plug, like a plugged into the wall. If the batteries run out, the suction thing runs on the battery, so if you let it, it'll fall off the wall if you let it run out of batteries.
That.
So definitely bring your power adapter if you're going to do that. But I thought that was kind of cool. Apparently, it will not work on brick. Brick is too porous, but almost any other surface.
Well, at CES, Sony announced, as we said, 30 million sold. 30 million PlayStation 5 sold, but really it was its last chance to sell people on PlayStation VR 2. Thus the lower third. One last pitch. And so it...
the 3-0 pitch.
Yeah, if you... pretty much. So it announced, as you're seeing right now, Gran Turismo 7 VR that'll be available at launch. They've retrofitted Gran Turismo 7 to work on PlayStation VR 2. Is that the killer app for PlayStation VR 2?
Not for me.
Yeah. And it works with your existing code. So if you've already bought Gran Turismo 7, you're good. You just download an update and you can play it in VR. It would have been nice if they had told people back when Gran Turismo 7 launched that, hey, this is going to have a VR component, because maybe some people might have kept the game instead of selling it back or selling it on eBay or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how many people buy physical games anymore.
Yeah.
I had to go into a GameStop to get a physical copy of a game for a gift for someone before Christmas, and it was like walking into a war zone. Like, they are the only places those things are left are in very weird parts of town, and I came out of the parking garage to get to this one place, and it was right next to one of the subway stations, and there was like two guys fighting each other, like literally just fighting each other, like just fighting, and another guy was arguing to a lamppost, and like I'm like, what? Where is
Sounds like San Francisco to me.
It was very much like it was kind of nostalgic a little bit. I'm like, I didn't know we did this here. That's great. All the storefronts were closed in the area. I had to go around the corner and go find the place, and then like I get in there, and it's like. It was nice at something, because I just wanted, and he guy can't find it. He was looking at me, he's like, I got this one that's gutted. I'm like, no, it's a gift. I'm not taking an open copy for a gift for somebody, you weirdo. And like, you're looking everywhere for a copy of a game. It came out 2 weeks ago. I'm like, what are you doing? And in the meantime, people are coming. It was nice to know some things don't change, because in the meantime, people are coming up to him and it's like, does the Switch come with any games? No. You sure? Pretty sure. You know? And like, guys, like, I want to trade in this PS4 for a PS5. And he's like, well, I can give you this much credit for the PS4, and then it's this, but we don't have any PS5. Like, well, if you did, it's a straight trade, right? And he's like, no, it's you get like this much credit for the PS4, and then you pay the rest for the He's like, but it's a game system. It's just system for system. I just want to trade you this for a PS5.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, I used to have the same arguments with people when I worked in a game store in 1999 over like trying to trade a fucking Super Nintendo for a
an
Dreamcast
N64 or whatever.
Yeah, or like, it's like, oh, you just send it back to Nintendo, and like that's the trade-ins. I'm like, no, it's not a fucking car. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I went into a GameStop over Christmas to buy something for one of my nephews, and my mom and I stood in line for almost 45 minutes.
Yeah, it took forever
waiting to buy a game.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I was like,
I did, however, find the Zelda Loftwing amiibo.
Oh,
which
really?
was just sitting there. I'm like, oh, I'll take that. I thought that was long gone, and the guy was like, it is, but you're here, kind of thing. It was, But yeah, that was an experience. So yeah, I don't know how many physical copies of games are really out there anymore.
Still would have been nice to know.
Yeah,
and maybe they just didn't know back when it launched. It wasn't that long ago, though.
I think you're right when you say that a lot of these things are falling into place for PSVR 2 in the last minute.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I'm sure they didn't say that largely because they didn't know if it was going to be able to happen.
I think largely they looked at the launch lineup for PlayStation VR 2 and was like, hot damn, we need something else.
The boy needs help.
Yeah. So what can we retrofit easily? And they're like, GT7.
And I'm sure they were doing that already anyway, but like, it's like maybe it's like, oh,
let's just throw some more people at it now and get it done.
Maybe for February, we can do that?
Yep. As we said earlier, Beat Saber was also announced for PlayStation VR 2. That just should be a given. They should be announcing that a month before it comes out.
That would have been the first thing you secured.
It's insane. Yeah. And then, as you saw in the B-roll, PlayStation VR 2 coming with 30 games at launch, of which I think we've identified 2 or 3 that we feel like is really worth kind of focusing on and playing. But Matt, really the coolest thing that PlayStation debuted at CES was Project Leonardo. Did you see this?
The accessibility controller.
It is PlayStation's accessibility controller, and it looks absolutely bonkers. First of all, I just want to say right off the top, it is amazing that PlayStation and Xbox are creating these controllers for people to be able to play video games who normally could not play.
Yeah, although I don't think this exists without Microsoft.
Right. Microsoft was first by a mile. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Xbox accessibility controller has been out for what, like a year and a half at this point?
Yeah,
2 years?
Something like that.
That's how long it took Sony then to get the idea to then make their own.
Yeah, that's about the R&D production.
That is exactly what happened. There's no denying it. But
like
still.
Sony was like, oh. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of the impetus for all the accessibility features that have started going in Sony's first-party stuff, too.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like, well, look, no matter what else you think about Microsoft or Xbox, you have to give them credit for starting that.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
That's a big deal.
Yep. But here's my thing. This thing looks insane. Even after watching this presentation, I really had no idea how it works. It's all like modular, and you could take all those kind of keys apart and put them wherever you want. Would you agree with me that maybe Microsoft and PlayStation should have just worked together to create one controller? Like a universal controller that will work across all hardware.
I think that would have been better overall, but I don't think either of them are there with each other.
With each other. You think the relationship isn't there? Well, right now they're like cats and dogs again.
Yeah.
Over this Activision acquisition.
I could see Microsoft agreeing to do that, but I don't think Sony is. It's going to take Sony kind of the realization of the goodwill and the PR that this generates to do that. Like that would be if Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo could all kind of get together and design a universal accessibility controller. Yeah, that would be monumental. That would be a big deal.
I mean, that's what needs to happen, right?
I think so, and I think Sony's the one you'd need to get on. I think Nintendo would be open to that.
It would be. Yep. I think Sony's the X factor, as you can see.
For sure.
It went through all this R&D to develop its own. When they could have just allowed Xboxes to work.
And it does seem like it's a functional design. Like it's a
different approach.
It's a different way to go with it, and it looks like it works. And maybe at some point you figure out how both of these turn out. How the Microsoft's works and how this one works, and maybe you think, maybe one side is like, I think we could take that from that and make this, and then that.
Or maybe Nintendo's ends up being
something else
a combo of the two.
Think, at a certain point, there might be. I would like to think there'd be a temptation to kind of have all your accessibility teams put their heads together in some sort of summit meeting,
right?
And sort of talk about, hey, maybe we could get something that works on everything.
I agree.
So you don't have people who need these accessibility controllers having to buy 3 different controllers. If they have the 3 systems. Isn't
it amazing that it's taken this long for them to make stuff like this for people?
I mean, it's both amazing and not amazing at all. It's both amazing that it took this long to think of this or to do any of this, and it's also not amazing that people would just ignore people who are disabled for as long as they have. Like, that's just how it goes.
Thank God, finally, people are working for folks like that.
But, I mean, look how long it took just to put ramps everywhere.
Yeah, it's true. 20 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yep. So, kudos to Sony. Look, don't think that I'm saying like, I can't believe Sony didn't work with Microsoft. I'm glad that they're doing it at all. I just think ultimately the final best solution would be one controller to rule them all, that work on all the systems, so that people who are disabled learn to start playing with that controller from the beginning, and they don't have to relearn how to work with another controller if they want to go play on PlayStation.
It would, but that is a very anti-capitalist idea.
I know.
And
trying to do something just for the better good, it just doesn't fly.
As T'Challa said, we don't do that here.
Yeah. So anyway, Sony got its little 5 minutes in PlayStation got its 5 minutes of time in Sony's CES press conference. You feel like it moved any needles in any way?
Probably not. I mean, I didn't even know it happened until you brought it up.
Oh, really?
Frankly, I don't pay.
Had you not seen Leonardo until right now?
No.
Wow.
I mean, I'd seen a picture of it. I didn't watch the presentation or anything or see any of that. I'd seen a picture of that. This is Sony's accessibility controller. I was like, cool.
Yeah. That's good. Like, to me, that was worth it. I think that's also the right venue.
That's the right place to do that.
Yeah. As far as moving the needle for PlayStation VR for you, any?
No.
Me either.
Again, it's not.
CES is
my
chance to reach
PlayStation
the
VR
mainstream.
problem is not related to the hardware or the tech or any of that. It's related to the fact that I've seen Sony put these things out and never look at them again.
Yeah.
Like, PlayStation VR 2 is going to come out with a pretty good launch lineup. It's going to have some things come out for the remainder of the year, and then we are never going to hear about it again.
You're probably right. Unless we...
It's what they did with the PSVR 1. It's what they did with the PSP. It's what they did with the Vita. That is just what Sony does.
It's what they do with the Move controllers and motion controls and...
I mean, it was a minor miracle they brought the Move controllers back to work with the PlayStation VR.
It is, yeah. Which I bought, and then I used twice. Mm-hmm. And now I have these brand new Move controllers that I've used twice that are worth nothing.
I did have my old ones. Luckily,
that are worth nothing.
I used them for that Rush of Blood game, and that was about it.
Yep. It didn't move the needle for me either. Project Leonardo, maybe they maybe should have just dedicated their whole 5 minutes to that, but I get why they do this, because it's a chance for them to reach new eyeballs and new audiences. The people who watch CES and Sony's presser at CES, they do not watch GameFace. They do not watch E3 press conferences. So now those people know some of the stuff that Sony's working on, and some of those people are into VR, because there was a good 3-year stretch where CES was almost like a VR convention. So that audience is into VR in some ways, so maybe it picks them up a couple sales, but for the most part, I don't think it's going to move the needle all that much, unless you're a disabled person and you are really excited about Project Leonardo. So there you go. That's Sony at CES 2023. Next up, biggest announcement this week, without a doubt, is that Amazon and Crystal Dynamics have signed a deal for Amazon to publish Tomb Raider going forward. Now, don't forget, Matt, that Embracer just bought Tomb Raider.
Right.
So Embracer is actually the publisher that owns Tomb Raider. Crystal Dynamics is the studio that's going to develop the next Tomb Raider, but Amazon is who has been tapped to actually publish the game, keeping in mind that Amazon itself has only published like 3 games. Mm-hmm. Is this just like brute force? Got the resources? That's all we need?
I don't know. That's bizarre to me. And when I first saw like a headline about this, I thought they were making a TV show.
Right. For Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Me too. That's what I thought first. Signs deal with Amazon for Tomb Raider. Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
They're going to have a TV show that'll be ready when the next game's ready to come out, and they'll have their synergy going on, and they'll use Amazon as a marketing partner to get the word out about the game as well. But no, Amazon is actually publishing and distributing. The other thing too, Matt, is that like, has Amazon ever published a physical game?
No, it's all been...
It's just been digital.
Digital stuff.
So does it even have the channels?
I mean, yeah, it could if it wanted to. Amazon makes products. It could do that. Will it? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing here.
This seems like such a bizarre partnership.
And also, it seems like, Amazon doesn't have like a vision for a Tomb Raider game. No, and Embracer doesn't seem to have a vision for anything.
No, it's just money. It's a vision for money.
Who's coming up with the ideas here? Who's going to actually do this?
Crystal Dynamics is going to make the game. Which is good.
It's just, what a weird setup.
It is. It makes no sense to me at all.
I mean, maybe if you just leave Crystal Dynamics to do what they do, you're going to get something worthwhile, but like, I don't know. Like, hopefully it doesn't end up as like a Luna exclusive or something.
Well, they did share some details about the next Tomb Raider, which we hadn't had yet. It's going to be available for multiple platforms. So, again, Amazon's going to have to figure out how to satisfy all those channels for all these different platforms.
Dark Force 256 makes a good point. Walmart wouldn't carry this because they won't support Amazon.
Right. Oh, wow.
Walmart is the biggest retailer of video games in the U.S.
They didn't think this one through, did they?
It's a weird choice.
It is a weird choice. It really doesn't make any sense.
Amazon's not been doing great with the video game stuff in general. Like, because I ordered some video game stuff, not new stuff, but older stuff for gifts this year. And they kept sending me European versions of PS4
PAL
games.
Stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it would work. You know, they're region free.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, why would you do? Like, just send me an American. So a couple of them I did return them, and I got, North American versions off of eBay actually, for cheaper.
That's hilarious.
They were cheaper than what Amazon was selling them for the European version for.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, why would you not tell me what you're selling me? It's
that makes no sense. But we did get some small details on the next game. As we said, multiple platforms. It's going to be a multi-platform game.
How about a Tomb Raider game where she isn't horribly injured for
all the time and limping around?
Yeah, give me a...
They're calling it the biggest, most expansive Tomb Raider game to date. It's being built on Unreal Engine 5 and aims to, quote, push the envelope of fidelity and to deliver the high-quality cinematic action-adventure experience that fans deserve, end quote. Crystal Dynamics will develop with Amazon Games providing full support and publishing the game globally, not just in the U.S. And again, Embracer is a European conglomerate. So Amazon's taken over the distribution and publishing in Europe as well. It's a single-player, narrative-driven adventure that continues Lara Croft's story in the Tomb Raider series. It includes all the elements that have made Tomb Raider one of the most revered franchises in gaming, giving players control of the confident and multidimensional hero Lara Croft in an environment that rewards exploration and creative pathfinding with mind-bending puzzles to solve and a wide variety of enemies to face and overcome. And that is all we have on the new Tomb Raider, which basically means it's like all the other Tomb Raiders. It doesn't sound like there's anything there that's going to change.
No, you'll be doing all the same things and wearing the same skin-tight pants.
Yeah.
Which make no sense for someone who needs to climb over a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Even there, like, those aren't snow pants.
Yeah. The beginning of this game in particular was really hard to rationalize.
Yeah. I like these games. I do
too.
Enjoy them.
They come out just in the right amount of time, like every 4 years, every 5 years. I'm always just ready to play another one when they come out.
Yeah, I just hope she's finally the Tomb Raider now.
Right, because that's what this whole reboot is still her becoming whatever she's supposed to be.
How about this? I'll stop bugging Crystal Dynamics about that line if they can tell me right now what the Tomb Raider is.
Yeah.
You tell me what that means.
Because she hasn't become it yet, and I've spent about 40 hours.
How will we know?
How will we know when she's there? What do you think, though, about this publishing relationship? Do you think Amazon now will become just like a video game publisher?
I don't know. I think it depends how this turns out.
Does it depend on if the game sells well, or does it depend on if Amazon does well with just distribution and publishing?
Probably both.
Yeah. Because you're right.
It's not going to affect us much because I'm just going to buy it digitally.
Right.
I'm not going to, but like, I don't know.
Are you more excited or less excited for the new Tomb Raider after hearing this news?
I mean, I'll wait until I see it.
Yeah.
I don't. I have faith in Crystal Dynamics knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean the last few have been pretty great, so I have no reason to believe.
I would like them to stop being like weird origin stories and just tell me a
good Tomb Raider story. Yeah,
like she is who she is. She does what she does, and maybe address the whole stealing artifacts from indigenous cultures thing. That might be. Yeah. They touch on that a little bit.
They do.
Noah talks about that a little bit in Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I would like a way to want to talk about modernizing Lara Croft, modernize her into not being a culture thief, and maybe turn her into something more of like a guardian of these things.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea. That's the exact way they should take it.
Like she would go, instead of like going to steal stuff, or like she goes places where she sees that you can even keep the organization that was hunting her and her father and stuff, and just now what she does is she tracks what they're doing, and if they're going to go interfere with some ancient lost city, she goes and stops them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's a great idea. I don't think they'll do it.
No, and over the course of trying to stop them, you accidentally awaken the ancient god or what It's inevitable that she's going to, fiddle with some of that stuff and put things on altars and solve puzzles, and that's how. Do you want giant samurai monsters? Because that's how you get giant samurai monsters.
Yeah.
So you can always have it sort of stumbling into accidentally activating the ancient magic thing, but I think there's a direction you can reinvent her into that, because although that does sort of undercut the Tomb Raider title.
It does, yeah.
Like, Tomb Raider.
You're stopping other people from
Tomb
raiding
Raider
the tomb.
itself is kind of a bad juju title at this point. I mean, it's like you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
If to anyone's tomb.
No.
Really?
No, you really shouldn't. So, I don't know. I guess, is it better for Amazon to publish this or Square Enix? I mean,
I would say at worst that's a lateral move.
Yes, I think it's a push. Yeah, so. I mean, I would say I think it's probably better for a Western company to be representing Tomb Raider, because I think they probably have a better idea of what makes it successful. But
let's go with Nolan Elrich's title, Tomb Respector.
Tomb Raider Preventer from HMA 42.
Tomb Preserver. Tomb Keeper.
Tomb Keeper.
Good, yeah.
Good job, chat. But I think ultimately, when the rubber hits the road, probably not much is going to change. Crystal Dynamics is still going to make the Tomb Raider that it wants to make. And I would argue that probably Amazon will meddle less than Square Enix did, as far as like the development of the game and how the game should be. Like, I think Amazon will just be like, yo, you make Tomb Raider. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to make Tomb Raider. You make the best game. We'll get it to people.
We couldn't even make
anything. We couldn't make anything. Whereas Square Enix feels like it has some agency to maybe meddle in the development a little bit. So maybe ultimately this is for the better. I still don't understand why Embracer would allow Amazon to publish it instead of Embracer.
I would love to know the story behind, like, what makes you go and like, who should publish this, the next installment of this massive franchise we just bought? That giant company that like completely failed to get even one thing out of their own game studios.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess they got that New World game, but like everyone else I know that moved to San Diego to do stuff down there all came back.
Yeah, they're already back now. They're probably still getting paid by Amazon.
Yeah, I don't know. I doubt that. They were barely getting paid as it was.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
They weren't getting paid well?
Like the actual people in the trenches? Of course not.
Actually, I shouldn't be surprised, because Amazon notoriously doesn't pay. What it does is it gives you stock options. And if you make it to 5 years, you're basically rich. Mm-hmm. If you don't make it to 5 years, you worked your ass off for less money than you were worth.
And they know damn well most of the people they do that with are not making it to 5 years.
Yeah.
Not even of their own volition.
Yeah.
Like those.
The turnover is just the data. It's all numbers. Yep. So there you go. Tomb Raider with the new publisher. We did get the first details on the new Tomb Raider. I don't think they were all that surprising. I think they were exactly what we expected the next Tomb Raider to be. But hopefully, with Amazon handling the publishing, Square Enix will keep its fingers out of the pie, and we'll get a true Tomb Raider that Crystal Dynamics wants to make. So we did have one more topic, but we've run out of time. We're not going to be able to get to it because we have the first new episode of Name That Game for 2023. And don't forget, people, that everybody can play. If you won last year, you can play. All right, so again, Everybody's back in the pool. All the ringers who won early last year, you guys are back in now. The competition is going to be stiff for this. If you haven't played Name That Game, I show you 5 screenshots from a game, and you just need to name the game. That's all there is to it. The objective is to name the game before Matt. You guys win all ties, so if Matt says the name of the game, and I look over and it appears in chat, you guys get the win. If you win, you get a free video game. And actually, the last 2 winners, so we did a double episode, did not contact me for their free games. So if that was you, contact me and we'll get the free games out to you. I really hope you guys do this as soon as you win, because going back and looking through the list of game codes that I have and trying to remember which the last one was that I sent out, if it's like 2 weeks after you won, gets confusing. So it would be awesome if when you win, you message me immediately so I can give you the reward immediately. And now I don't have to issue the warning about if you've played, don't play again. Everybody can play. Dark Force 256, thank you for subscribing for Tier 1. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, no! And of course, Emperor Dread with Body Harvest, no. Okay, so we'll do this, and then we'll hopefully have enough time to do a little bit of Q&A to kick off 2023 before we get going into the bulk of the year. But first, we have to play Name That Game. Here comes the first image. Oh, and one thing I should say before we get going is the chat is in slow mode. So you can't spam chat with just random game names, hoping that you guess the right one. You get one guess every 60 seconds, so make sure it counts. Don't just go guessing all willy-nilly. Make an educated guess. And with that, we're ready to go. And here is the first image. Nokia Snake Game. No. The Legacy got it. The Last of Us.
I was going to say that, and I was
Were
like,
you?
it's too easy.
Nope, it is.
It looks like Boston.
Good job. The Legacy got it. And Mr. Starwalker got it like right afterwards. No, it is The Last of Us. A lot of people got it.
I got to start just saying the first
Yeah,
thing
you
I
should,
think,
man. Just guess totally. It's totally fine. It's been a long...
I couldn't remember if you'd already done that, because the problem... This has become a problem since I started playing the Guess the Game...
Oh, the app
Wordle
game.
style thing.
Yeah.
Is I keep mixing up whether they've done that one or
we've done
that
it.
one. It's like, yeah, it's...
I'll be honest, it's already getting hard for me to remember the games that we've done in this already. So I'm going to have to start getting a little more obscure. I went back and checked. We had not done this one yet, which I was surprised that we hadn't done this one yet. So
It's a good week for it.
yeah. Well, that's why I did it, with the show debuting.
That all just seemed too easy. I'm like,
Short Raver. Yeah, for some reason, that building just stands out. It's funny how...
It's Boston.
That works, though.
It just looks like that New England area
really
you wander
great.
through the whole
time. And look,
time.
I made sure, because if this, I cropped out, like, the building on the left is decaying, and there's, like, vines growing up it. So I had to crop that out, because that would have been a dead giveaway.
Yeah, my first thoughts were Last of Us and Bully, but I knew it couldn't be Bully because it looks
too good. Yeah. Here's a second. This is the first time someone got it on the first image in a long, long time. So great job. Here's the second one. Would that have helped you?
No, the first one was still...
More obvious?
Yeah.
Yep. Here's the third one.
Yeah, that's very recognizable.
I also included his jeans there on the side to maybe would help sort of jog.
But that's a Naughty Dog puddle.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how else to describe it.
And the flowers. I think the flowers might have given it away.
Yeah.
Here's the fourth image. Here's where I'm trying to help you guys get it. This is where I showed like the overgrown whatever, and this probably would have given it away. But if it didn't, this one definitely would have. And that's Ellie. That's the most iconic screenshot of the entire game, which is her holding the rifle from the side angle. So, congratulations, The Legacy. Our first winner of Name That Game for 2023. Make sure you DM me. You can DM me here on Twitch. You can DM me on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. You can DM me on Sifted. I'm at Shane. However you want to do it, just hit me up and we will get you a code for your game. Congratulations once again for first Name That Game of 2023. And now we have some time to answer some of your questions. Not a ton of time. Well, actually we do. We got some time to answer some questions because that went so fast. Getting it on the first one. That's the first one that's happened in a long time. Mr. Starwalker, you were close too, but he definitely beat you to it by a couple seconds there. So that was a both of you guys were on it. You knew what it was right away. Either one of you guys could type faster, or one of you had a better internet connection. It does come down to that sometimes. Let's see what you guys are talking about in chat and answer a couple questions. From Schneeky, hope you had a great holiday season, man. Good to see you. Have you seen the fan-made remake of TR2? Why don't these studios see these remakes and pump money into them and finish them? I'm talking good fan remakes, not jank. TR2.
Tomb Raider 2?
Is that what it is?
I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about there
The
either.
reason they don't do that is because there's a huge legal issue to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's illegal.
It's not just illegal, but also, like, if you then turn around and use that code and that, like, that,
you owe money for the people who built the code.
That, and you also, like, are basically weakening a legal case against one of those you might want to shut down one day.
Yeah. No, he's saying, it was Tomb Raider 2. Okay, cool.
Sometimes people do get hired from that, like, but they don't. You're not going to take that game. Like, you're not going to take the Metroid 2 remake and turn that into a product. That's never going to happen. That is legal suicide.
Yep. Next level. What are your most anticipated games for 2023? We actually did that at the end of our Game of the Year awards. We gave both a winner and a runner-up. However, probably not in next week's episode, but the one after, we're going to do like a top 10. Like, Matt and I are going to put our heads together and jointly, between the two of us, figure out a top 10 most anticipated games for 23. So that's coming, so I don't want to spoil it now. Derek D111. In the PlayStation section, I'm glad somebody picked up on this. In the PlayStation section, how did Jamiroquai fit into Virtual Insanity in the lower third? Well, it was for the CES, Sony CES thing, and obviously their big push there was PlayStation VR 2. And my argument is that they're insane to be pushing PlayStation VR 2 as hard as they are, because I don't think it's going to do that well. So therefore, Virtual Insanity, and it absolutely was a nod to Jamiroquai, one of my favorite groups from my rave days. Even though they didn't make rave music, for whatever reason, they were like the chill out soundtrack for ravers. Like, you get back from the rave or from the after hours, and we put on Jamiroquai, and it was just perfect. It just winded you down, put you to sleep. It was the greatest after party music for rave. So I'm a big, big fan of Jamiroquai. Hype Train level 2, 94%. Thanks, everybody. Next. People are mentioning your cat, Luna.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Sneaky, it doesn't matter that it's not code from the original Tomb Raider. Making your own code for another person's IP is illegal, and they cannot be seen to endorse that.
Right.
Like, that's the problem.
Yep.
Like, you could hire the person who did it and have them work on something else, but you will never see a fan-made remake suddenly get turned into an official product. That is not a thing that will happen.
Look at Luna chilling. She's our third host. We finally got a third host of GameFace.
She's here for LS Cream.
Yep, that's right. Next level. You keep asking questions we've already answered. Are you excited about the Last of Us HBO show that comes out this weekend? Yes, we are. Yeah. We talked about it in the open, that the big premiere was in Hollywood last night, and Hollywood was literally flooded for their big premiere event and their red carpet. So we're very excited, which is also why The Last of Us was the game for Name That Game this week. The Legacy, winner of Name That Game. Which company do you think will be bought this year?
I mean, who knows? Square. Feels like Square is ready.
Square Enix? Ubisoft, maybe? Although Ubisoft just signed that deal with Tencent or whatever.
Yeah, but Ubi's finding their own funding outside of things. But
yeah.
Maybe not this year, but Sony's going to buy Square eventually.
Probably.
Like there's too much smoke there for there not to be fire.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox buys EA or something like that. I don't think it would happen this year. I'll tell you what, though. If
they're looking at it,
if the Activision Blizzard deal does somehow fall through, I wouldn't be surprised if they pivot to something else like EA.
But the irony there is, like, that would change so much, like, in a way that the purchase of Activision wouldn't. Like, you instantly free up the NFL license. Doing that, because the transfer of ownership would cause those license agreements to become. I
guess it depends on how the verbiage in the agreement.
All license agreements have that.
Non-transferable.
Because you do not want to get stuck with a new owner and no control over who has your license.
That's a good point.
So there is no possible way that being bought wouldn't automatically make the NFL license. At the very least, the NFL would have the option to decide whether they got renewed or not.
Luna's our new audio tech.
Yeah, much like if someone buys Sony Pictures, the Spider-Man license reverts back to Marvel automatically. Like, you buying Sony Pictures does not give you the Spider-Man movies.
Okay.
So that's and remember, Marvel negotiated that contract with Sony in the 90s when they were literally trying to get money to survive. Like, that was they were not in any kind of position of power, or that's just standard licensing terms.
Yep.
So someone else buying EA would free up a lot of weird stuff all of a sudden. It would be very interesting to see.
Yeah, see what happened ultimately. Cinetai. People talk about multiple dormant Sony IP. Now that they have PlayStation VR 2 coming up, what dormant IP should they bring back to VR? I'm wishing for Wipeout. Well, Wipeout is perfect.
Wipeout would be
I mean, it would make me barf, but it is perfect.
Mine would be Wipeout and Colony Wars.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are looking for SOCOM to come back.
I would just take a Colony Wars collection at this point. Just a remaster of Colony Wars would be great. No one remembers that fucking game.
Look, Sony needs a shooter, obviously, as it's made blatantly clear as it's tried to stop the Activision Blizzard deal. SOCOM is just sitting there. Like, if you have the talent sitting there, why not make a SOCOM game? The whole thing is just mind-boggling.
Sony seems to be a little gun-shy about shooters after
after
the failure of Killzone. Yeah, but after what happened with Killzone.
Yeah. Killzone and Resistance, neither one of them really caught with the mainstream.
Give me that Resistance trilogy remaster. Like, I would love to see those get saved from the PS3.
Yep.
I'll say that every fucking time. Insomniac. Okay, Insomniac. Just between Spider-Man games, like while you're waiting for Wolverine to spin up, like just
slide it on in there.
Save those things in there. I don't even need it. Don't remake them. Just make them work. Just make them work on the modern PlayStation and put them up there.
Yeah. Is that Saber Juno? Have you noticed many people are going back into the office and are no longer working from home? There's been a lot of articles saying people are going back, but I fear this may be corporate propaganda. It is absolutely corporate propaganda. That is not happening.
When it's not, people just literally being ordered.
Yeah, my wife works at a huge corporation, and whatever they do is pretty typical of what most corporations are doing. And right now, she is required to be in the office 2 days a week, and she can work from home the other 3 days a week. And that is what pretty much everyone is doing now. Some flip. Some you need to be in the office 3 days, out 2 days, but it's either it's the 3 and the 2 in one way or the other. So no, people are not going back to the offices, and I don't think they ever will. Now, I was just in rural Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania for Christmas, and I was talking to some of my friends there who don't work at big corporations. They work for like local yokel companies in central PA or whatever. And some of them did say that some of their bosses were starting, like if they had older bosses or older owners of the company, that some of those people were starting to drop hints about 2023. They're like, hey, things might be changing around here and blah, blah, blah. But they also said that, like, basically all the workers will quit.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. There are so many jobs available. Just millions. I'm not even exaggerating. Millions of unfilled jobs. You can't be a douchebag and have a workforce anymore. Right now, the workers are in power. So they were all like, look, if he tells us we got to start coming into work, we've already proved we could do our jobs at home, we'll just leave and we'll go somewhere else. Like,
as they should.
As they should. That's how capitalism's supposed to work.
Yeah, people, the bosses forget that it is supposed to go both ways.
Yeah.
And, like, people can take their labor and take it somewhere else.
It just hasn't worked that way for so long.
Yeah, they had everyone in a very desperate position, and after the pandemic, there was in an article, I think in the New York Times or something, or maybe Washington Post, but it was like, it was literally like CEOs and like middle managers complaining that, like, when I ask someone to, like, do extra work over the weekend, they want money for it. They won't just do it.
Don't just come and work.
Yeah. And, like, people want money for their extra.
Be paid for working.
Compensation. I'm like, yeah, no shit.
What a concept. I want to get paid for my hours.
Like, and there's going to be a big shift there where people, that's the whole, like, no one wants to work thing. No one wants to work for you.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're an ass.
Yeah, and you underpay people and you're greedy. Yeah.
Oh, you're so lazy. No. You don't
you're
work. You're
trying to rip me off.
The Joker himself. If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yeah.
And people seem to have, like, learned with this brush with mortality we all had as a species that, like, yeah, we shouldn't put up with that bullshit.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that everybody suddenly had to do it from home and that's the big thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's proved now.
The argument against working from home was always like, well, there's no way that an office could function that way. And it can.
You can. You can do almost anything from home.
Yeah. Like, even, like, production, the only thing you really need to show up for in person is the shoot days.
Yeah. Everything else.
That's it.
Yep,
like,
that's it.
There's very few jobs in the world that can't be done remotely.
You need a studio to shoot it in, and
the other thing about Luna's gonna throw.
Luna's
up.
gonna puke.
Yeah.
Live on GameFace.
Yeah, not on the wires. Don't do it on the wires. Come on.
That's funny.
There you go.
I'm glad she didn't do it on the desk.
There it is.
And I'm definitely glad she didn't do it next to our LS Cream sponsor
No,
bottles. That would have been really bad.
Not the greatest still. That's your thumbnail.
Yeah.
That's a big hairball.
Yep.
Now we're gonna run away.
Mitchell is alive. Thank you for Twitch Prime. You also asked a question. Do you think we'll get announced new Nintendo hardware? We talked about that in the big Nintendo preview for 2023 already. Lots of you guys showing up late, I guess. El Guapo 3385. I just recently finished Kojima's book, The Creative Gene, and thought it's a nicely written book with great insight on works that influenced him. Which game director would you like to see have a biography written about him or her? Miyamoto, obviously. Is there already one, maybe?
There must be.
You would think, but not an autobiography.
No, I mean, I can't see him doing that.
Me either.
He doesn't have the ego for it.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
Kojima does. But
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel that Miyamoto doesn't seem like the kind of guy who cares about telling his own story.
No, even though I would like to read it.
Oh, sure. But
I'd like to read it in his own words.
He's like Hayao Miyazaki. It's just like, I'm nothing special.
Yeah. Someone will write it for him eventually.
I watched a whole thing about Miyazaki and all that, like his like how he thinks every film he makes disappoints him, and he thinks his body of work is mediocre, and it's just like, okay, dude.
Most great artists
that's true.
do feel that way.
But the one thing I could find where he was really happy, like he is actually a pretty funny dude in person. He's cynical and funny and sarcastic. But like the one thing I could find where he was actually like literally like gleeful was from an interview. It was a dual interview with him and Akira Kurosawa in the 90s before Kurosawa died, obviously. But like Kurosawa at one point during the interview turns to him and says, "I really enjoyed that cat bus in My Neighbor Totoro," and like Miyazaki just like vibrates with glee for
lit
like
up.
the next 5 minutes. Like it literally says in the transcript, Miyazaki seems lost for words for several minutes. Like,
that's great.
Which is great. It's fun to see someone. It's fun to see the giants meet their giants.
Yeah,
and that was definitely that for him.
Let's see.
We're getting to the point where it's time to start telling the stories of all these
before it's too late.
First gen greats of the game industry, while they can still be interviewed about it.
Yeah, before it's too late. Before we can hear it from them.
That's what Cliff Bleszinski should do.
What?
Well, he just wrote his own autobiography.
Right.
Cliff should go. Be like the Stephen Ambrose of the game industry, and go record all these great developers telling their stories,
telling their own
because
story.
they would trust him because he's one of them.
Yeah, or Keeley can do
it. I would rather someone who's going to tell the story properly and not as a marketing exercise.
Yeah.
Mitch Dyer would be, or Danny O'Dwyer.
Yeah, he'd be good. Yep. Mitchell is alive. Since we couldn't answer your last one, we answered this one. Epic has been hinting at Fortnite VR. Do you think that will significantly increase adoption of VR?
No. Fortnite works because it's the thing the kids can play and just pick up. You're not spending a lot of money on it.
My nieces and nephews are hopelessly addicted to Fortnite. Like crackhead addicted to Fortnite.
But
it's
will they
scary.
put on VR goggles for it?
No. It's scary, though. Like, it is their life.
Mm-hmm. My niece, is funny that I don't have that with like my niece because she's she's addicted to right now. Dwarf Fortress.
Wow.
The new.
I would prefer that.
The new visual upgrade they did where you can play. She constantly messages me like, I just did this one dwarf was going to die, so I tried to like wall him up in a room so the others wouldn't see it and get traumatized, but I didn't do it fast enough, and now like everyone's mourning him and I can't get them to fucking do anything. Like it's very funny. But her and all her friends on her Discord like are playing Dwarf Fortress, and I'm like, that's much better to me than Fortnite, really.
All my nieces and nephews are seriously crackheads over Fortnite. Their parents are like, they came to me.
Like they're concerned?
Yes, because they're like, Shane, you're the game guy. Like, we have a problem here. Like, they throw tantrums when they can't play. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, like, laying on the carpet, like, pounding their fists, like hurting themselves, trying to make the parents be like, stop hurting yourself and just play. Like, it's messed up. And V-Bucks, it's crazy. Like, and the crazy part about it, really, is that some of my brothers and sisters are into it almost as much as the kids. Like, they know all about the battle passes and how they work and how it's smarter, whether it's smarter to just play and earn the stuff or just pay for it. Like, it's like, this is like a cult. It really is crazy, man, what they've done with Fortnite. But to answer your question, I don't think VR matters to any of those people. Like, they're not asking for it. It's as Matt says, a solution in search of a problem. JM Rain, Happy New Year, brother. Hope you're doing good. Have you watched Terrifier 2 yet? No, I have not. Still haven't watched it. The holidays just didn't really strike me as a great time to watch it.
For that, I guess.
Although I think it might be a Christmas movie. I think he maybe wears a Santa outfit.
Oh, no, are you sure you're not thinking of Violent Santa?
Maybe. I don't know.
That was pretty good.
Was it good?
Yeah, shockingly.
Wow. No, I haven't watched it yet. When I do, I'll let you guys know, I promise.
Or Violent Night, that's what it was.
Oh. Erebus Jones, are you going to buy a DualSense Edge controller when they come out?
No.
No, me either.
I'm fine with the existing one.
It's great. The DualSense is already awesome. It's like the best controller already. Like, maybe they make it better. I don't know.
Like maybe if mine breaks, I actually have a second one, so I just open that one.
I just got a
But if the second one breaks, then maybe I'd think about an Edge controller, but I don't feel like that's going to happen.
I now have a third PlayStation 5 controller because I got one with the system. Y'all bought me one as a backup.
Right.
And then I had forgot, and I left a black controller on my wish list on Amazon. I forgot to remove it before people started shopping for me. And there's like a cutoff where I don't go back and look at it because then I'll know what people bought me for Christmas.
Right.
So I left it on there, and somebody bought it for me, and I didn't have the heart to tell them I didn't want it. So now I have a black controller that matches my black plates. So now I have symbiosis between my controller and my PlayStation 5. But yeah, I'm not buying one. They're also more expensive than the Xbox Pro controller or Elite controllers, right? I think they're more expensive even.
They're either the same or a little more, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a necessary expense.
Justin Horman, cat butthole, typical cat on cam, LOL. Yep.
She has a very prominent butthole, that is true, because of the way her tail angles.
Well, she's also a black cat.
Right.
So it sticks out.
You either see the butthole or you see the glowing eyes. It's one end or the other.
Her eyes are really piercing, yep. Has YouTube's new rules affected you? I think they have in a positive way. I just, out of the blue, I noticed that finally, for the first time in forever, our YouTube subscribers have started going up. It sat there at 15,000 forever. And in the last, 4 weeks, it's gone up. So whatever they've done to change, keep doing it. And whatever they were doing before was not helping us at all, and we never figured it out. But now it appears that whatever we've been doing all along actually works with whatever they're doing now. So yes, I've noticed a difference, and it's better. It's helping us. So hallelujah. It's amazing. The Oldest Fox, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1, man. That's awesome. We really appreciate it. Been doing that for 9 months. That's amazing, man. Thank you. Poor Luna. Everyone feels bad because we're making fun of her. Fire Native, thank you for Twitch Prime. Case Money, thank you for Twitch Prime.
The poor Lunas were when she threw up.
Oh, got you. Oh, so I'm way behind here.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the last one, Squishy Muffin. I recently listened to an old GameFace where you, Shane, were up in arms regarding Mark Cerny's dry PS5 spec reveal presentation, saying it'll affect PS5 sales, etc. What do you think now, looking back? I still think it didn't help. I don't think it sold PlayStation 5s.
Well, we didn't have enough PlayStation 5s made to know
if it had any impact. Yeah.
That is the PlayStation 5 supply ended here. The Cerny was boring, so it might have sold fewer. Was up here.
Right.
It was a difference between here and here.
Right.
There was no way to know.
Yeah, there's no way to tell. But I'm totally cool.
I still don't think it would have, but there's no way to know.
Yeah. I'm totally cool if you want to go back and check out old episodes and find stuff that we got wrong and call us out. That's totally cool. I would just ask that if you stumble across stuff that Matt and I got right, which we do a lot if you go back and watch old episodes of GameFace, that you would point that out as well.
Go find that first Last of Us 2 teaser where I said this game's 4 years away.
Yeah.
And it was.
Dude, we hit stuff all the time, and nobody ever goes back and brings this stuff up. So it'd be cool if you...
Because that's only fun for us.
Right, yeah. It's only fun for them to call us out when we're wrong,
right.
I guess, which is funny. Okay, I think that's it for GameFace 325. A great episode. Great to get back with you guys. Thanks to everybody who subscribed with Twitch Prime during the show. If you're watching this archive on YouTube, you can do it too. The instructions are down below. If you've already connected your Twitch and your Amazon Prime accounts, it's literally 2 clicks, 5 seconds it takes to do it. If you're doing it for the first time, the instructions are very simple and they're down in the description. We'd appreciate it if you could do that. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can give us a free $2.50 every month. Now, Amazon takes half of that, which is so weird. Why does it take money from its own company? I don't understand it.
I don't know. I never understood why we had to pay for the edit time at our own company.
Right. That's really weird,
at
too.
G4. It was
But
like,
anyway, you can give us a free $1.25 every month. That's what we end up getting ultimately, just by doing that. And that would be awesome. If you want to support us long-term, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. And there you can pledge whatever you want per month. $1 if you just want to help us out. $2 gets you Pactor Factor. $4 gets you everything. And it's been that way since we've launched. We've never increased the price of our Patreon, though everyone else, it appears, has. I think we're the only ones left still at that kind of $4 level. So we'd appreciate it very much. And if you can't help us financially in any way, just like our stuff or like leave comments on the YouTube version of our shows. Like all that stuff helps with like the algorithm. Like it, like obviously subscribe to our channel, all that stuff. I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys know how YouTube works. But all that stuff helps. So even if you don't have money, you can do all that stuff to help us in another way. So look for next week. We'll do some more 2023 previews. We'll talk a little bit more about what Sifted is doing in 2023, the changes that we're making on the site and with our content and all that stuff. And we'll see you then. Probably still won't be talking about too many games, though. Someone's final question was like, where are the games?
oh,
If we made them,
they're lurking in the mists ahead.
It's a slow January, to be sure. I totally understand where you guys are coming from. So anyway,
There's some stuff at the end.
yeah, there is.
Get some
The end of the month's
Forspoken.
not bad.
You
Yep.
got Fire Emblem.
The last episode of the month will be
if you
pretty
like
good.
games that start with F, the second half of this
Forspoken
month
and
is-
Fire Emblem,
yeah.
we're good. We got you, baby. So anyway, on behalf of Matt, Luna, and myself, Shane Satterfield, we'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up, and